You've reached the High Fashion Hotline.
Hi, my family's going to a concert in the park, and we want our style to be the main attraction.
Rock over to Old Navy.
Old Navy?
Yep, right now get up to 50% off jeans from $15 for adults, $10 for kids at Old Navy and OldNavy.com.
Up to 50% off jeans for the family? That's music to my ears.
Plus, now you can get in and out of the store in a flash with buy online, pick up in store. It's fun, fast, and free.
Styles that take center stage and free pickup in store when I buy online? Old Navy, here we come.
High fashion, Old Navy. Valid 7/20 to 7/29. Select styles only.
Will tonight's first round be as chalky as last night's was? Will the Joes be able to keep up with the pros? And how did tonight's drafters react to what they saw take place last night? Follow along with the live draft board tonight and listen to our live analysis as we call the action for the 2018 Pros vs. Joes FFPC, the Upside Down League number 2, to see who will win a 2019 FFPC main event entry. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Hey, bro.
Broadcast live and heard around the world. You are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Thanks so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is, of course, the patron saint of fantasy football. He is the Dizzle. He is Dave Gerzak. Tonight, we have the second of 6 special episodes for you this season. It's the FFPC Pros vs. Joes, the Upside Down League number 2 draft tonight. And we'll be covering it live for you for the next 2 hours. You can follow the streaming draft board at youtube.com/highstakesfantasyfootball. Shout out to the chat room right now. Post your questions you might have for us or for the guests in there. You can connect with us on Twitter at HSFFHour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak tonight. Facebook.com/HSFFHour is where to reach us there. You can also check out our website, HSFFHour.com. 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA if you want to give us a buzz. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have the questions for us, now's the time to send them. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails as we move through this special 2-hour broadcast tonight. If you are listening to us for the first time, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour normally airs Friday nights right here, blogtalkradio.com/HSFF at 10/9 Central p.m. On-demand streaming is always available for listening anytime via Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, and Overcast. Big shout out to Darren Armani from Fantasy Mojo, who helps put this competition together every year. Of course, our mutual friend and producer Rob and our audio engineer Bryce making it happen via overtime this week. We had the first draft last night, and it was extra special because it came on the eve of the main event early draft slot announcement deadline, and tonight is that deadline, midnight Pacific time. If you want your FFPC main event draft slot early, by July 30th, before August. Today's the day. You got to make it happen. Pay for your team in full. You can add another team on for $1,500, and you can do that at myffpc.com. So make sure your balances are squared away so you can get those draft slots before August. So there you go. That is it for the promotion. Let's get to the meat of the show. Not that the appetizer is out of the way. Get to the lineup of the Pros versus Joes. Last night, the Joes had the first pick, and they would be drafting in the odd spots. The Pros are drafting in the odd spots tonight. The Joes will be in the evens. Leading things off tonight, DynastyFootballFactory.com's Ryan Santos, a longtime FFPC player. He may have a leg up in this competition. It remains to be seen, but he will be picking first tonight. Joe Stutzman, an FFPC Joe, who's had a lot of success in the main event. He will be drafting second. Our good friend Evan Silva from Roto World picking third tonight. Mark Pennington right behind him, an FFPC Joe that is picking fourth. Sports Injury Predictors, Jason Rock Phelps, who does a lot of best balls as well, definitely a force to be tangled with tonight, picking fifth. FFPC Joe Eric Danowski is picking sixth. Another one of our friends from FantasyAlarm.com, Howard Bender, at RotoBuzzGuy on Twitter. He's picking seventh. I'll actually be talking about his team, how it turned out on the Fantasy Alarm show this Thursday afternoon. So that'll be a lot of fun. We'll see what kind of team he puts together tonight. Mike Maloney drafting eighth for the FFPC Joes. Graham Barfield from Fantasy Guru is ninth. Joseph and Tom Delzanero, longtime FFPC players, picking 10th. Former overall champion of the Pros vs. Joes competition from the Fantasy Sports Network, Jake Seeley, picking 11th. And then John Kleinfelter and Dave Beyer, an FFPC duo, picking 12th tonight. And that is the lineup. Dave, we saw some interesting stuff last night. I feel like everybody is sort of just feeling things out in the first Pros vs. Joes draft last night. Not a huge, not anybody making waves, no huge shocks tonight. We'll see what happens tonight. A lot of people were really, really pumped for this Monday night show with a lot of heavy hitters in this draft. So I got to believe that we are in for a treat. It's going to be a big performance tonight from all 12 of these owners.
I'm very excited, Balky. Can't wait.
Are you?
Sure.
Well, we'll get into it. There was some news that happened in the NFL today, or non-news, fake news, real news. I don't know what it is. We're gonna find out how real it was by how this draft goes tonight. So let's kick things off as round one is off and running here. We have leading things off. Ryan Santos took Todd Gurley, and then Joe Stutzman took Le'Veon Bell. No big surprise there. Evan Silva had his choice of the top receiver or another running back. He goes David Johnson, coming off the wrist injury last year. Looks to be healed. And he also plans to report to training camp on time right now. There's some talk that he might hold out looking for a bigger contract because, he is being a little bit underpaid on his rookie deal. But he's reports, so that's good news for David Johnson, and certainly a big reason why Evan Silva took him there with that uncertainty behind him. Antonio Brown to Mark Pennington at 4. Ezekiel Elliott falls to number 5 tonight to Jason Rock Phelps. Eric Danowski then takes New Orleans Saints running back Alvin Kamara. Saquon Barkley to Howard Bender at 7. I love that pick, Dave, given everything I talked about Barkley last night. So that's a good pick there.
His name is Balky, and he goes with Barkley.
I almost called him Saquon Balky when I saw the pick there. Rob Gronkowski is the 8th pick tonight by Mike Maloney.
I wonder if he's going to do the back-to-back tight end.
We'll have to see. Yeah, round 2 is going fast here, so we'll see what he does. Kareem Hunt is the first pick by Graham Barfield tonight from Fantasy Guru. Melvin Gordon at the 10 spot to Joe and Tom Delzanero. DeAndre Hopkins falls all the way to the 11th spot to Jake Seeley. And rounding things out tonight, Dalvin Cook at 12 to John Kleinfelder and Dave Beyer. Not a lot of shocks here, Dave. I guess the thing that kind of stands out to me is DeAndre Hopkins at 11 to Jake Seeley. But given the success that Jake's had in this contest, maybe this is just the ammo he needed was to get some value falling to him at the 11. What do you make of Hopkins at the 11? I think that's a fantastic pick.
Yeah, that's a nice pick, actually. Gets a little bit of value there. I don't mind it. I mean, I can see where Hopkins falls to 11. Like the running backs that go ahead of him, I get it.
Yeah, and this is like the rise of the running back year, like where a lot of people are taking running back in the first round tonight.
Yeah, 0 RB, that's a failure. Now it's going to work with.
Well, I don't know about that. We saw basically on Twitter there was a lot of hashtag analysis done on the teams that did their drafts last night, and a lot of people, despite Brian Holgen and Scott Campbell going 0 RB with their draft, a lot of people liked their draft, how it turned out last night in Pros vs. Joes.
Yeah, it was nice.
It's definitely, and a lot of people said that they had the best one. There's a lot of love from Todd Burrows, had a good draft last night. Kurt Kikas, I saw a lot of people saying that they really liked his draft too. But we'll see if what happens tonight. Clearly, there's going to be very few people going 0 RB, with only 3 people not taking a running back here in the first round. Kleinfelder and Beyer kick off round 2 with Leonard Fournette, so they pair Dalvin Cook with another sophomore running back there. That's a lot of touches in the backfield there. Strong start for Cook and Fournette to fester at 12.
The Fat Bastards at 12. Nice job, guys.
And Fat Bastard's taking Leonard Fournette, by the way.
The skinny bastard,
Which is
223, is that what he weighs right now? 222?
223 is what he weighed in. Yeah.
Light.
Yeah.
He's lean.
Leaning out. Odell Beckham, to Jake Seeley to pair with DeAndre Hopkins. So he starts receiver. He might have 2 of the top 3 receivers in the contest. You could make the argument that maybe he has the top 2. I mean, it's certainly possible.
It's possible. It's a nice start.
Christian McCaffrey goes to the Dells and Arrows. They're at the 203, followed by Julio Jones to Graham Barfield in the second round. And sure enough,
it only took us 2 drafts to get to it.
Look what happens at the 205 tonight. Mike Maloney starts off tight end. He goes Rob Gronkowski in the first round, gets Travis Kelce in the second. Henry Muto in the chat room tonight. There is always one guy who takes 2 tight ends in the first 5 rounds. And sure enough, there's one guy tonight that goes tight end to kick things off. Henry Muto, by the way, celebrating a birthday today. We should wish him a happy birthday.
I already did in the chat.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm wishing him on the air.
Yeah,
happy birthday.
Yeah, so we did say yesterday that we thought for sure that somebody was going to do the Gronk-Kelce stack. It took us to the second draft for it to happen.
Right. Yep. And it didn't take long for it to happen. Henry also saying that this is the highest he's seen Rob Gronkowski go in any draft at the 108. And you know what? I'm trying to think about a lot of the Football Guys Players Championship drafts, which, by the way, you can sign up for at myffpc.com.
Nice product.
Thank you. There's I'm just trying to think if I've seen Gronk go as high as the 108. And I don't know if I have. He has been a turn pick at the end of the first round. He's been in the second round quite a bit. I don't know if I've seen him as high as the 108.
I mean, 108, who cares? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be but it's like 108.
You're not trying to be flippant.
110, 111, whatever. It's fine.
Okay. Fair enough.
If you like Gronk, I mean, if he has one of those Gronky seasons where he gets like 15 touchdowns, it's not going to matter because he'll be scoring like a top 5 wide receiver without the extra half a point.
There's a chance that he might have banked 20 touchdowns, maybe even more, maybe 25 touchdowns in the first 2 rounds for Mike Maloney there with Gronk and Kelce. He's got a shot at it.
That's a lot. I don't know about 25. That's a lot.
I don't know, man.
I'll take the under. I got 500.
Whatever. I'm not saying he did.
Oh, you're getting the hyperbole going.
No, it's not even hyperbole. I'm just saying he might have. If as you said, if he has a Gronky season, we all know that Travis Kelce is extremely talented as well. It's possible. Moving on, Devontae Adams goes to Howard Bender to pair with Saquon Barkley. Michael Thomas right after that to Eric Danowski. Jason Rock Phelps goes with Jerick McKinnon to pair with Ezekiel Elliott. McKinnon rises all the way tonight, Dave, to the 208. Am I looking at that right? Yeah, 208. Devontae Freeman right after that, and then Keenan Allen to Evan Silva as he grabs a receiver to pair with David Johnson.
It's a little cheap for Keenan Allen, seems like. He fell just a tad there.
I don't know, but I can tell you that in FFPC Best Ball, he
goes, because I like Keenan Allen.
206 is where he normally goes.
All right.
So yeah, there was some value there. Who would you have rather have drafted at that spot if you were Jason Rock Phelps? Jerick McKinnon or Devontae Freeman?
McKinnon for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Freeman has lingering injury issues.
I agree. I'm just a little surprised that you answered so quickly to that.
I've never been a gargantuan Freeman person. Even though he's productive, he doesn't seem like he has that high of a ceiling.
Yeah. Okay. That's and Tevin Coleman obviously is still lurking there as well. I know what a big fan of his you are. Always drafting him everywhere.
He is there.
One of the things I should mention, and I apologize I didn't bring it up last night, but our good buddy and probably number 1 fan of the HSFF Hour, our friend Javier from Terre Haute, he put together odds to win, and apparently he's been communicating with Darren Armani behind our backs, which I'm still not sure how comfortable I am with that. But he put together odds to win for all the pros versus Joe's draft. And I didn't mention it last night. And I know Darren Armani, you can follow on Twitter at Fantasy Mojo. He already tweeted him out. I'll bring it up tonight as far as the odds to win for each one of these players. Leading the way is obviously former overall champion Jake Seeley at 4-1 tonight. Not far behind him is seasoned best ball player Ryan Santos at 5-1. And of course,
what is his odds? Who's this? I know it's Javier, but what were the odds again?
4-1 for Jake Seeley.
For tonight?
For tonight, to win the league.
All right, great. Go ahead.
Ryan Santos 5-1. Evan Silva 6-1. Jason Rock Phelps, who does a ton of best balls as well, he's at 7-1.
So what does Javier do?
I don't know. I mean, apparently he monitors this kind of stuff on Twitter. I'm not sure. 8-1 for Eric Danowski, and then we have Mike Maloney and Joe Stutzman each at 10-1. Stutzman, come on, he needs. You know, the thing is, he's always been so successful at like 20-round drafts. I don't know how many best balls he's done, but he should be better than 10-1. Graham Barfield is 12-1, and then you have Howard Bender and John Kleinfelter and Dave Byer at 15-1, and Mark Pennington rounding things out at 20-1 to win this division. The upside down.
I have no idea where these come from.
They come from Javier. He came up with these, sent them into Armani.
Well, these are actually kind of appropriate because the odds that he's paying out kind of suck. So it's like you could actually bet these, and like he'd be the casino and he would do well.
Yeah.
Because the average should be.
Javier's not a gambler, Dave. He's just.
He's obviously not an odds maker.
Yeah, clearly. But it's fun. I thought I'd bring it up anyway to.
Yeah, great. Like some people feel bad, and other people feel good.
Right. Exactly. And ultimately, everybody feels good when it's all said and done. AJ Green was the pick to Joe Stutzman there at the 211 right after Keenan Allen went, and then you have Zach Ertz rounding things out at the 212. Ryan Santos grabs him there. So Ryan Santos, Dave, a guy who does a lot of FFPC best balls. He posts his results on Twitter quite frequently at FFLinks, FFLINX. He grabs a tight end here at the 212, and sure, and I don't know how much of this had to be, I'm on the end, if I want a top 3 tight end, I got to grab him here, because he's not obviously coming back. But he grabs Ertz at the 212, and now we have 3 tight ends off the board in the top 24.
That's right, yeah, seems logical. I think Ertz went at like the 303, so you go to Tikas last night.
He did, yeah, and I think that's accurate. You know, one of the things that we'll have to pay attention to now that the first 2 rounds have been completed here, how will the fact that Mike Maloney doubled up on tight end with his first 2 picks, how is that going to affect everybody else? The fact that the number 3 tight end is off the board, so the quote-unquote top tier of tight ends have all been spoken for, how does everybody react to that? Are they going to start bumping up the tight ends, and maybe we'll see a couple here picked in round 3. Maybe there'll be more in round 4. Like that's going to be a storyline that we're going to have to follow here as we get underway here in the 3rd round.
Which does help Santos. I mean, that by being the guy that's effectively the second team to take a tight end, he helps press the issue, and then he has the advantage of taking that third tight end.
You also have Henry Muto chiming in saying that that's the latest he's seen Keenan Allen go, Dave. So you talk about the value that Evan Silva got with Keenan Allen there in the 2nd round at the 210. That he certainly did fall a little bit. Doug Baldwin kicks things off at the 301 here as we get underway in the 3rd round of the Pros vs. Joes, the Upside Down League 2 here on blogtalkradio.com/HSFF. Eric Falkman and Dave Gerzak coming at you. I'm really starting to like Doug Baldwin. You know, a lot of the players that we have come on the show talk about, we always ask them, who's a guy that you really like this year? Or who's a player that you're going to be targeting early in drafts. And Doug Baldwin's name keeps coming up over and over again. We talked about the fact that there is no Jimmy Graham in that offense this year. There is no Paul Richardson in that offense this year. They're breaking in a rookie running back that may or may not be the starter. We don't know. But there's a lot of uncertainty in Seattle. One of the things that we are not uncertain about is the fact that Doug Baldwin is going to have a massive amount of targets from Russell Wilson this year. And as far as the 301 goes, I really think that's a great pick there by an astute drafter in Ryan Santos.
I mean, I guess if you're trying to make a counter argument, you would say that is Baldwin a talented enough wide receiver to beat double coverage because they're not going to have many other weapons at receiver on the team. They're going to have Lockett. It's a deep draft, but they could probably single cover him, and maybe they'll double up Baldwin.
That's a good point, and there's not really that tight end threat there either, to take pressure off of Baldwin. So it's the age-old question of volume versus attention, and he should get a lot of both, you would think.
I think he's a really great NFL wide receiver. I do question if he has enough athleticism to be that guy. I mean, to be the one that they're hyper focused on. Antonio Brown can do it. Big Ben doesn't care. He'll still throw it to him.
Right.
We'll see how that works out. I mean, there's going to be some changes to that team, so we'll have to. I guess we'll find out.
Jordan Howard going to at the 302 to Joe Stutzman, and then Evan Silvergren. You know, I don't want to make it seem like we're saying Evan Silva is making all these amazing picks, but I really agree with these top three that he made. I mean, I guess I'm not fully on board with David Johnson, but I definitely see it. Mike Evans was going in like the mid to late first last year, and now you can get him at the 303 in the pros versus Joes. Now I know that's still probably way super high given what you think about Mikey Evans and Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. But
I really don't hate Evans. I just like Fitz better.
Okay.
I really don't hate him. By the way, the bet was made mostly for the fun of making the bet. We had bet Fitzgerald.
Oh, here we go. Whatever.
I'm not backtracking. I think Fitz outscores him again, like he outscored him last year by 60 points.
All right. We shall see, my friend.
He could do 3 points a game worse and still win.
Yeah. Well, how could he? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. 304. Okay, let's talk about a guy you like, Tyreek Hill.
Well, this is earlier with Hill. Last time he went to 312, 401, right?
This is much earlier than he went last night, and his ADP in FFPC best ball is the 308. Now, he goes with the 304 tonight. Obviously, Mark Pennington, if you like him, he is not making it to Pennington in the fourth, so you have to grab him there. And that is his number 2 receiver to pair with Antonio Brown. Joe Mixon is the third straight running back drafted by Jason Rock Phelps. He gets Elliott, McKinnon, and Joe Mixon. That is a lot of touches at the top of the draft. And remember, Jason Rock Phelps is, he's a highly accomplished best ball player, knows what he's doing, and he's definitely loading up on these high touch running backs early on.
Is that his name? Jason Rock Phelps?
Yeah, it's Jason Phelps, but I always see Jason Rock Phelps on Twitter.
Is that his middle name, or is that his porn name, or what?
I don't know.
He should call it.
He already tweeted out that he can't call in tonight because he's used to slow drafts.
Oh, right.
So like the 90 seconds is just going. So I totally respect it.
Jason the Rock Phelps.
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool name.
Loved him in Rampage, by the way.
Actually, I hated Rampage,
yeah,
but I enjoyed the joke.
Okay. Adam Thielen right after that. Joe Mixon to Jason Rock Phelps. And then Adam Thielen to Eric Danowski right after that. Alex Collins. Let's talk about this pick. Howard Bender takes Alex Collins.
Howard's on a bender.
At the 307, Dave. So you look at where Collins normally goes in
501, 503.
Best ball. He normally goes at the 408. Now, he has been taken as high as the 303, so this is certainly not the earliest we've seen him go. But this is a bit of a surprising pick here. And honestly, who thought Alex Collins would be going in the third round of an FFPC draft at this time last year?
Well, I mean, I think that's a mistake of a pick. I know that if you like Alex Collins, that's great, but you probably had a 75 to 80% chance of getting Collins coming back in the fourth round. Even if you love the guy, I think you pass on and take the shot at getting him in the fourth round.
Yeah, I mean, you look at we'll talk about the running backs that are being selected after or right around Alex Collins. There's some question marks with those guys, so I get why if you like Collins.
Yeah, there are other positions.
I know, but if you look at this is a best ball format where you do like to get these high touch running backs early on. So it makes sense. I wouldn't have done it, but I can certainly see why he did it. Especially if you are a fan of Collins and what he can do in that offense. It's not a terrible pick, Howard. I don't care what anybody says. Amari Cooper.
Just awful.
Who would you rather? Okay, what was the better pick
Cooper.
here? It was Cooper? You like Cooper better than Collins?
Sure.
Okay. So Mike Maloney takes Amari Cooper. He does not go tight end.
Coming around a little bit on Cooper.
Really?
I told you. We're coming around a little bit.
No, you didn't. You didn't tell me you were coming around on Cooper.
A little bit. Not ahead of Fitz, though. Of course, Fitz is the gold standard.
And the gold standard went right after Amari Cooper. Larry Fitzgerald going to the Fantasy Gurus, Graham Barfield here at the 309. So that is his second receiver drafted. He pairs him with Julio Jones. Jimmy Graham is a third-round pick tonight as he goes for the Dells and Arrows at the 310. Completing the third round, it is T.Y. Hilton going to Jake Seeley and Stephon Diggs to the Fat Bastards, John Kleinfelter and Dave Byer. I looked at Jake Seeley's team. We saw, I can't remember who it was last night.
You got a little value on Hilton, too.
Somebody went receiver. Was it Bob Beyondich? It might have been, I think it was Bob Beyondich and Mark Williams last night. They went receiver. And I said, okay, let's see how they fill in the cracks at running back and tight end. And you and I differed on how their team turned out. I think that you were a little nonplussed at it, and I thought he did a pretty good job adding some pretty significant pieces to his running backs.
Was that wasn't the team that took 5
Yeah,
straight?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of the 3.8 yards per carry running back team,
Here we go.
plus Lynch.
Just go ahead and get it out of your system.
I'm just saying.
Fine.
There was like 4 running backs that averaged 3.8 yards per carry, and Marshawn who averaged 4.3 on like 200 carries.
Well, we'll see what happens tonight. We'll see who did it better. Was it Bobby Onich or will it be Jake Seeley after?
We don't know what Seeley's doing. Shady McCoy, he doesn't have to worry about yards per carry. I know we're about to talk about the pick is
Right.
402. You just have to worry about any off-field issues, which may or may not be real. We don't know.
We always talk about one of the things we reveal on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour every year. We broadcast live from the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. We broadcast live outside of Louisville, Kentucky when we go down there for it. And one of the things we always do is we make our ascendant announcement, the guy that we always think is going to rise up draft boards to maybe like being a second round, maybe an early third round pick, a guy who, had been going like the fourth or fifth. Has Stephon Diggs eliminated himself from the conversation of being the ascendant this year because he's sort of ascended already? He goes up to 312 tonight.
I think we should be naming the ascendant earlier than when we do, because it's just there's not a whole lot of movement going on by the time we get there.
But the whole there is after the first game of the season when we have a bunch of the FFPC drafts.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
You had the original idea.
At some point in the preseason, it didn't have to be the Kentucky weekend.
No, but we always.
We should be able to name it whenever we want. It's our damn show.
But the whole idea behind the ascendant was this is the guy that's going to rise up draft boards at the main event in Vegas.
That's kind of the way you ended up framing it over the years.
That's how you framed it to me.
It's a player that's rising up draft boards and could possibly surprise at the main event. We don't know exactly when, but I mean, it's like.
All right.
It's just when you make
so we
it,
have to reassess the chemistry.
When you make it so hyper specific, it gets really tough to do.
Yeah, well, we've nailed it the last few years.
Did we? Who was last year?
I can't remember.
We don't know who it was.
I can't remember who it was. Probably some rookie running back. Honestly, I'd have to go back and listen.
I hope it wasn't Mixon. Was it McCaffrey?
No, because McCaffrey was already going fairly high. I honestly don't remember.
I'm sure it was Kareem Hunt.
It wasn't Hunt. I'll tell you that right now. It wasn't Hunt. It wasn't.
Shut up, no one's going to go back and listen. It was Kareem Hunt.
I'll have to go back and
listen.
You're welcome. If anybody in the chat room, by the way, who remembers Bourbon City Ballers, I'm looking at you, who might remember who the ascendant was last year, definitely let us know. So let's get into the fourth round here, Dave.
Colossal bust.
Who? Last year's ascendant? Probably, yeah. Henry Muto agreeing with the assertion that Diggs has already ascended. Allen Robinson at the 401 tonight to Kleinfelter and Byer. LaShawn McCoy, you mentioned this to Jake Seeley. Dan Williamson has already chimed in the chat room that Jake is getting a ton of value falling to him. The back end is the place to be in this one.
Yeah, really.
And to start off, Hopkins, Beckham, Hilton, McCoy, as long as McCoy, is not affected by his legal issues. I wasn't even a big McCoy fan coming into this season, but to get him at the 4-2, man, that's really good. As long as the legal issues don't affect,
all three of those receiver picks, you got a ton of value there. I mean, they're good picks by Jake, but it's not like he had to actually make the picks, but they did fall to him, so it was nice for him.
Yeah, you still got to draft the guy. Juju Smith-Schuster at the 403 to the Delzaneros. Darius Geis, rookie running back for the Washington Football Redskins, to Graham Barfield as his number 2 running back. Josh Gordon, let's talk about this pick a little bit because I was kind of curious to see where he would end up. And
no change really.
No change really. And let's talk about the situation a little bit after he was selected at the 405 tonight by FFPC Joe Mike Maloney. Josh Gordon, it was kind of a weird situation where he posted on Instagram that he won't be at the Browns training camp at the start because he's continuing down this mental wellness plan that was already in motion, like this was pre-planned apparently, and everything's coup d'etat. A couple of NFL sources stated that he has not been suspended, according to Tom Pelissero and Adam Schefter on Twitter today. But then NFL spokesperson, and I can't remember his name, is Brian something, he said that the NFL will be looking up at this and acting on it when the time is appropriate, which to me seems that there was some sort of issue. And when there's some sort of issue, Dave, especially with all the other guys that you can get in the 4th round, I don't know. I think it's maybe more prudent to look elsewhere. Now, this is a little bit different format where you got to get first place. Second place is the first loser in this contest because you're out playing for the 2019 FFPC main event entry. But I don't know, man. Josh Gordon in the 4th, I don't think I could pull the trigger.
I don't either. I mean, the slightest whiff of any type of sense from Josh Gordon's camp, forget it. You know what I mean? He's burned through so many chances. It's like if it's not 100% perfect, it's 100% bad from my perspective. He's kind of honestly like instantly almost off my board because that's how dicey it is with Josh Gordon for me.
Kevin Williamson.
I'm moving down to the 6th for me right now.
Kevin Williamson in the chat room, Tyreek Hill was his guess at who last year's Ascendant was. I think that might be right, actually.
Was it really?
It might have been Tyreek Hill, yeah.
Well, actually, that was a pretty damn good pick, though.
Pretty good work. See, you always qualify it like it's got to be somebody who is awesome. I always qualified it. They don't have to be awesome. They just have to be the guy who rises up for it.
Well, definitely outperforming draft position and so on.
So Josh Gordon is a 6th-round pick for you right now, not a 4th round.
That's where I would have to. That's the deal I need.
Okay.
You know what Josh Gordon is to me? It's kind of like if you want to buy a Porsche 911 Turbo, right? And they're all going for about $100,000. And you see one, you look and you're like, oh, hey, what's this one? Oh, this one's $65,000. Why are all the rest 100? This one's 65. So you go, you click on, it, you check on the Carfax, and you're like, oh wow, this car was involved in an accident. And so you're like, well, do I want to buy the one with the bent frame, or do I want, it's cheaper? I have to get a cheaper price to buy the Porsche with the bent frame.
Right, I get it.
So I don't have a Porsche, by the way.
Does he have a
bent frame or straight frame?
Gordon have a bent frame?
He does, and it's been getting fixed.
Yeah.
His Carfax is bad.
Didn't we have like a fantasy Carfax idea? Like we'd have somebody know the history of all these players and
that sports injury predictor must be.
No, it wasn't just injuries. It was off the field issues or something. We had something.
I'm sure that's a terrible idea.
That went that went the way of waiverguys.com. Remember when we were going to do that? Just have somebody you pay somebody to do your waivers every week, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, with the fantasy sports laws, you have to do. What do they do that in Vegas where you put bets in for people?
Oh yeah, like a proxy.
A proxy.
You gotta have a proxy.
Fantasy proxy.
Proxy.
That was Lance's idea, I think, actually.
Lance is full of great ones. So.
Lance, I like that one. You should still do fantasy proxy.
Follow Lance, by the way, on Twitter at SportBettingMan. Does he have a blog or a website?
Yeah. Lance does have a blog. Lance, put your link in the chat room and we'll shout it out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly.
Longtime FFPC high stakes player.
Awesome.
Good insight there from him. We'll get that link out as long as we get it from Lance. So that was Josh Gordon to Mike Maloney. Right after that is a pair of tight ends, Delaney Walker to Howard Bender, Greg Olson, then to Eric Danowski. Dave, which one of those tight ends would you rather have on your team this year? Both of them are highly experienced. They are both playing on some pretty good offenses. Would you rather have Walker or Olson?
I guess I'll take Walker.
Just because you hate Corey Davis with the fire of 1,000 suns.
It's not quite that bad.
500 suns, whatever it is.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And you love DJ Moore with the love of 1,000 hearts.
Right. I like DJ Moore a lot. It's pretty close though, really.
Yeah. Be honest with me. That was a huge tiebreaker. Well, one of them has DJ Moore and the other one has Corey Davis.
Well, and you have Cam versus Mariota, so I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Right after Greg Olson, the 4th straight running back drafted by Jason Rock Phelps. It is Kenyon Drake. So he goes Elliott, McKinnon, Mixon, Drake. We talked about how these guys like Seeley are going to fill in the cracks at running back and tight end because of the receivers. What does Jason Rock Phelps do here with so many running backs early on? What does he do at tight end? What does he do at receiver? That will be a storyline to watch over the next 90 minutes of broadcast here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour.
This draft is turning out crazy with tight ends.
Brandon Cooks, yep, you can say that again. We'll touch more on it in the 5th round here.
Yep.
Brandon Cooks is the 3rd receiver drafted by Mark Pennington. He grabs him at the 409 tonight, and then a trio of running backs complete the 4th round. Jay Ajayi to Evan Silva, Mark Ingram to Joe Stutzman, and Rashad Penny. We already got a text from Scott Johnson, who drafted one of the best dynasty teams I've ever seen last night in the Pros versus Joes contest. He said that Santos took his man, Rashad Penny, at the 412. He said he loved the pick there. And Penny is his number 2 running back. How much stock, and I don't, it's July 23rd, so I don't know how much we're really, how much credit we're putting into these reports that we're hearing, but the fact that Chris Carson might be the starting running back over Rashad Penny. I mean, what in your opinion, what's the percentage chance that happens?
I want to use the quote from Big Short, and I want to say 0.
Okay, so percentage chance that it happens week 1, that Carson is.
I don't know, 25, 30.
Okay, and then percentage chance that
scores them, barring injury.
over the course of the season, barring injury.
I think it's very low, like 5 or 10%.
Okay, fair enough.
You don't pick a player 24th or whatever overall.
Right.
What's his name? Gum chewing, gray-haired walking guy, or they're always blabbing about how great he is.
Right.
Forget it. The Penny's this guy.
Signal Focused, by the way, is sports betting man blog. Follow him on Twitter at Sport Betting Man. There's a lot of great stuff on there, not just fantasy stuff, just a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, Rashad Penny in the 4th round. Knowing what we know right now, does that seem like a good value for you to get him there?
Sure, I like that pick. Why not?
I don't know.
He's a pass-catching back. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Even with the team, it's okay.
412 seems a little bit early. 501, I think, is the sweet spot for me. I would have taken him there. But, what have you with Ryan Santos.
Right.
Lamar Miller is the 501 pick tonight. We've talked about him ad nauseum as far as what we think of him this year. He is the king of low talent, high opportunity.
It's interesting to me. I give Santos credit because it's interesting to me that you can take Rashad Penny, like this young, very athletic, just got drafted in the 1st round, like this kind of hyped up guy, and then come right back around and take this low yards per carry, not doing very well, Lamar Miller. So I give him credit because I'm not able to really do that very well. I'll just take the hype guys more often than not. It's tough for me to get behind Lamar Miller, even knowing he's going to be an accumulator and he's going to get a lot of carries on a pretty decent offense.
Totally, great point. And if you use the Eric Balkman defeatist theory of who's the guy you'd be more ticked off about not picking, you look at week 6, and Lamar Miller could be languishing, and not doing anything with 15 touches a game, and Rashad Penny could be busting off these 20, 25-yard carries, and you could look at it like, why in the hell would I have taken Lamar Miller instead of Rashad Penny? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you pick him, and then I feel like crap after I picked him. And then in week 5, I'd have to bench him for no reason whatsoever. There's bye weeks going on, and I'm starting some goofball I picked up off waivers, some 3rd down back that just came on.
Exactly.
Because I can't stand Lamar Miller's 15 for 40 every week.
Lamar Accumulator Goofball Miller goes at the 501 to Ryan Santos tonight. Golden Tate is the 2nd receiver drafted by Joe Stutzman. He goes at the 502. Derrick Henry is the 3rd running back drafted by Evan Silva from Roto World, and Royce Freeman off the board to Mark Pennington at the 504. Royce Freeman's real-life teammate, Demaryius Thomas, is the number 1 receiver drafted by Jason Rock-Phelps, who actually started off with 4 straight running backs. So he still gets Demaryius Thomas in the 5th round. I talked about the players I feel like I'm going to have a lot of shares of this year, and I think Demaryius Thomas is another one of them. I just feel like I'm willing to take him earlier than a lot of other teams are, and I think he bounces back this year. He is a much more capable quarterback. He had a down season last year, which I think is unfairly driving his ADP down a little bit. So Demaryius Thomas has bounced back this year. It seems like a pretty safe bet, and going in the mid-5th. I love it. I think that's a great pick there. And that was, of course, to Jason Rock-Phelps.
I like Demaryius Thomas is one of those consummate professional type wide receivers. He's like a Fitzgerald. You usually don't really you said he had an off season last year. Where did he finish? I'm just trying to look this up now.
It wasn't great. I know he failed to crack 1,000 receiving yards.
He had an off season. He was wide receiver 16.
What was he drafted as? I'm just curious.
I don't know last year. I don't know. No idea. But that's the thing. Granted, receiver scoring was down last year for the 2nd consecutive year. And he scored 208 fantasy points, not that great, 13 points a game. But he was still wide receiver 16, even like with a crappy year. That's what I mean. When he's a quality professional wide receiver. I love that pick in the 5th.
Yeah, I do too. Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph, a pair of tight ends off the board to Eric Danowski and Howard Bender right after that. Now, what's interesting about that is we had a pair of tight ends go off the board back-to-back in the 4th round, and it was by those same guys, Eric Danowski and Howard Bender. So now, through 5 rounds, we have 3 teams already with 2 tight ends. We only have half the league having a tight end at this point, Dave. Give me your analysis on this situation of what you expect to see now.
Well, it's a best ball format. So now you have 5 teams control. 5 teams have 8 tight ends. So the guys that have been passing on tight ends, they better step up their game because tight ends are about to start flying off the board.
Yeah, you could, I look at, well, we'll get to what happened at the end of
Because everyone's going to take 3, and all of a sudden people are taking 2 and 3 before you know it.
We'll talk about what happened at the 5-6 turn here, but I think there's some interesting drafting being done there, and interesting might be a kind adjective that I'm using here. We'll see what I mean. Maybe it was fine. I don't know. So Evan Engram to Eric Danowski, Kyle Rudolph to Howard Bender. If I was to ask you, Dave, which of those tight ends you would rather have on your team this year, would it be the youthful, exuberant Evan Engram or the slowly aging Kyle Rudolph?
You know what? I think I like Engram and Rudolph just as much as Olsen and Walker, the guys that went
really?
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
they all look pretty good.
I think.
I like Engram and I like Rudolph, like we said last night with the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I like Rudolph, but I for sure like Rudolph better than Engram. I might like Rudolph best out of those guys too. I don't know if I could take them.
I'm saying that it's not much of a drop off, and these two guys, Bender and Danowski grabbed him.
That's a great point. Sony Michel is the selection right after Kyle Rudolph. Sony Michel going to Mike Maloney. Dion Lewis, the former Patriot, goes 1 pick after the current Patriot. Dion Lewis goes to Grant Barfield as his number 3 running back. Ronald Jones, Rojo, to Delzanero. Joe and Tom Delzanero.
Like that pick a lot.
Ronald Jones right there. Alshon Jeffrey at the 5'11" to Jake Seeley as his number 4 receiver, and Rex Burkhead, the number 3 running back, drafted by John Kleinfelter and Dave Fire. Let's get back to that 5'10" pick. Tell the listeners why you like Ronald Jones for the situation that Delzanero is in right there.
Well, I told you I like Rojo last night. I think he's a good pass-catching back. He did not catch a lot of passes at USC, but they really did not throw to the running backs at USC. I believe he will be that third down back. I don't think Peyton Barber's not talented. He can't even carry Ronald Jones' jock. And I think that Ronald Jones has a chance to be a top 15 back this year as a rookie. So I like him quite a bit. Yeah,
and you look at that's a dynamic trio of running backs that Delzaneros have put together there with Gordon, McCaffrey, and Jones. So let's be paying attention to that team as it goes forward and see what they do at receiver.
Sorry to interrupt. I like the 2 picks before Rojo as well. I mean, Dion Lewis and Sony Michel, those are nice values at running back. And it's interesting that, I know we just talked about Danowski and Bender taking 2 tight ends, but in doing so, they passed on like Sony Michel, Ronald Jones, and Dion Lewis. So it'll be interesting to see how they make up for that later.
Yeah, I mean, if you end up going with the receiver-heavy team or, draft tight ends early, that 5th round to me seems like it's kind of a sweet spot for getting a number 2 or even like, if you want to live dangerously, a number 1 running back. As far as FFPC ADP goes, you can get guys in the 5th round like Mark Ingram, like Jay Ajayi, Ronald Jones, Royce Freeman, Lamar Miller, Dion Lewis, Tariq Cohen. Well, Tariq Cohen's usually going at that 5-6 turn. But you look at those types of running backs that you get in the 5th round, Dave, they make for really good number 2 running backs and decent number 1 running backs if you already have a bunch of receivers and tight ends on your team. That might be the way to go in the 5th round. Let's get to the 6th round, and I believe I'm correct in saying this, that for the second straight Pros versus Joe's draft, the first quarterback off the board is Aaron Rodgers, and he goes once again at the 6:01 tonight to Kleinfelter and Beyer there. They crack the quarterbacks first, and Rodgers is the first quarterback off the board. You have Marshawn Lynch right after that to Jake Seeley, so he gets those 4 uber-talented receivers, and then he gets, not the youngest guys in the world, but definitely guys that should be getting a lot of touches this year in McCoy and Lynch. And Lynch running behind that offensive line, that is certainly a good way to spend a 6th-round pick. 4 receivers go off the board after Lynch. It is Marvin Jones to Delzanero. It is Chris Hogan to Barfield. It is Sammy Watkins to Mike Maloney. And then it is Will Fuller to Howard Bender. I'm a little nervous for Howard Bender's receivers, knowing that Will Fuller is his number 2 receiver right now. We talked about going back-to-back tight ends. This is kind of the price you pay for having that luxury of those pass catchers there.
I feel like I shouldn't be giving an analysis on Will Fuller. I just feel like he's such a one-trick pony that I just don't like him at all. So, somebody else should just talk about Will Fuller that likes him so they can feel a little bit better about it.
So that is Dave trying to be as nice as possible with the Will Fuller pick.
Like he averaged 11.3 points per game last year, but he only scored 113 because he missed a whole bunch of games like he's prone to do.
Right.
But once he came back, in week 9, right? He came back in week 9, scored 5 points, 3 points, and missed 3 more weeks, and scored 5, 9, 2, and 3.7. I mean, dude, give me a break. That sucks.
Yeah, it wasn't that great. But with
seriously, why you taking a guy that early that is that terrible in the last half of the season, it's a problem.
He was also
no Deshaun Watson.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
Nope, that's it. That's all I was going to say. Just keep in mind he was not catching passes from Deshaun Watson the second half of the season.
Well, okay, that's fine, but DeAndre Hopkins didn't seem to have that issue. He scored 20, 18, 17, 19, 16, 38, 18, and 16 during those same weeks when Watson was gone.
Dave.
I know they're not the same player, but
I
if they're
know.
supposed to be great, if he's supposed to be decent, why isn't he productive?
I know DeAndre Hopkins. I've drafted DeAndre Hopkins. Will Fuller is no DeAndre Hopkins.
We know that's correct.
Yes. Okay, so that was Will Fuller to Howard Bender there. Tariq Cohen to Eric Danowski as his number 2 running backs. A couple of pass catchers there for his backfield in Kamara and Tariq Cohen. Jordan Reed is the first tight end off the board to Jason Rock Phelps. Not the first tight end off the board, but the first one selected by the scribe over at Sports Injury Predictor. He gets Reed there. Interesting that Sports Injury Predictor, Jason Rock Phelps, takes Jordan Reed, maybe the guy that's easiest to predict injuries about. So that'll be an interesting conversation.
Nice job for your brand there.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this.
Maybe he stays healthy.
If Jordan Reed plays 14 games this year, that is a fantastic. That's fantastic for the brand.
You're right as usual, buddy.
Anybody, listen. If there's who knows injuries, Sports Injury Predictor, and you have Jason Phelps taking Jordan Reed in the 6th round of the Pros versus Joes, I think everybody's ears need to perk up, say, okay, well maybe this is the year that he actually plays quite a bit. So there's something to be said for that. Dave, to me, the shocker this round, the absolute floor. My jaw's still on the floor. The number 2 quarterback off the board tonight by Mark Pennington is Drew Brees, right behind Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, you mean the player you would take after Mahomes?
Drew Brees, who was like 7th or 8th last night. I think, wasn't he the 7th quarterback off the board last night?
He went 1 pick before Mahomes last night.
Yeah, and he goes tonight as the number 2 quarterback off the board.
And you said you like Mahomes better, but then you backtracked because you realized how dumb that sounded.
No, I'm front tracking. I like him better still. That's great.
Good for you, Bob.
In my real-time ranking updates, they pulled close, neck and neck, after we got that phone call from Zach Jarrows from Boobs Love Him, longtime FFPC player. I was like, you know what? You're right, but I still couldn't put Breeze ahead of Mahomes. The best he could do is pull even with them, and now Mahomes is pulled back.
Good for you. I'm glad you're sticking with it.
That said, Dave, Drew Brees is the 2nd quarterback off the board. To me, that's a little.
You must hate that.
I don't hate it, but
you must hate it.
I'm really surprised.
Your guy Mahomes is still out there.
Well, it's not like me versus the world on Mahomes either. But if you look at FFPC ADP, Drew Brees is on average the 7th quarterback off the board, usually not going until the 8-9 turn. And Pennington went and grabbed him at the 6th round. I don't think this is a pick that you would have made there.
No, I would not have taken Brees then.
But if you're taking a quarterback, if you're like made up your mind, I'm taking a quarterback here for sure, you wouldn't have picked Brees.
Oh,
come on.
No, I would not have, but I would not have taken a quarterback. I'm trying to think who else.
No, it's fine. You don't have to.
Yeah,
I'm not asking you a position. I'm just asking you as far as quarterbacks go. Drew Brees is not your number 2 quarterback.
I probably would have taken Brady or Russell Wilson.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm guessing. I wouldn't have taken Watson, but I like Watson as well. I really like Cam Newton as a sweet value in deep best ball league.
I totally agree with that. Dave, please do not mention players that have not been selected.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you guys haven't heard of Cam Newton. He will be drafted sometime soon.
George Kittle is a 6th round pick tonight because the tight ends are flying off the board. Kittle is selected by Evan Silva as his number 1 tight end. And then a pair of receivers ending the 6th round of action. It is Jarvis Landry to Joe Stutzman, and it is Michael Crabtree to Ryan Santos. Again, I know Ryan Santos does a lot of these drafts, but I like the receivers that he's cobbling together. Waits to grab his. He waits till round 3 to grab his number 1 receiver. Gets great value in Doug Baldwin, and then he waits until the end of the 6th round, of the 6-12, to take Michael Crabtree, a guy that I think is going to be full of targets. I think that's the guy I was referring to last night when I said I think I'm going to have a lot of shares of Crabtree this year. I think he's in for a big season.
Where did Crabtree go last night? He went way at the other end. He went to 5-12?
I can't remember. I should just bring that up.
Santos is good because he's got Baldwin and Crabtree. He takes veteran players in that position. Where if he's going to be a little bit weak, it's like, why not take veterans that are definitely going to produce something?
That is a great point. And I talk about the philosophy of that a little bit when it comes to drafting young, sexy, hyped-up players versus drafting old standbys in this format?
Well, I mean, I think a running back drafting young players, it makes a lot of sense, right? Good young running backs are where you want to be. But old veteran receivers, a lot of times they're cheap. Like Crabtree's pretty cheap. Jarvis Landry, and he's not even all that old, is really pretty cheap. Marvin Jones, no one's excited about Marvin Jones. Alshon Jeffrey gets hurt all the time, granted. But he's signed like a $40 million contract. And Demaryius Thomas, the guy we talked about earlier, and Golden Tate. Those are guys that win the 5th and 6th round of this draft, and they're pretty inexpensive. I would much rather have all of those players than someone like Will Fuller, for example. Again, I'm not trying to pick on Howard Bender's pick. I'm not trying to pick on Will Fuller totally. But again, I feel like he's a young player. It's more of a one-trick pony. And for him to actually have a great fantasy season, even in best ball, is going to be challenging. I know he had some huge games last year, but just a few.
Michael Crabtree was the 5-12 last night.
Yeah, so you got a full round of value versus last night.
There you go. So that is the 6th round here, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this is the the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hours coverage of the FFPC Pros versus Joes competition. We are at League number 2 tonight. This is the Upside Down League, and we will be broadcasting again live tomorrow at 10/9 Central. And then next week, we will have the second half of these drafts on Sunday at 9/8 Central. 8/7 Central. Monday is 9/8 Central, and then next Tuesday will be the final Pros versus Joes draft. That will be at 10/9 Central. We do it every year. You can check out these. We're only broadcasting for the first 2 hours tonight. If you want to check out the full draft boards, you can do so at the FFPC message boards at myffpc.com, or just simply check out the Twitter accounts of FFPC, at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman. We'll tweet them all out tomorrow, and you can take a look at them. Be on our Facebook pages as well. Let's get into some 7th round analysis here.
Where's our callers, Walkie?
It is just completed. I'm telling you, there's a lot of guys tonight that were really worried about this.
You know what?
If it was the format, if it was the competition, there's a lot of guys super concerned about it.
These are all guys, right?
And and they will.
They millennials?
We
need people to man up a little bit here.
All right, I'm going to cut you off right there. But I'm going to tell you this. That even though we won't hear from Evan Silva calling in on the show tonight, we will have him on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour this Friday.
That's a nice treat.
Yeah, we had Doug Goodison draft his Pros vs. Joes team last night. He'll be on our show at 10/9 Central this Friday, and then Evan is going to come on at 9:30 Central Time, and we'll talk to him about his draft and how it turned out, and just sort of his thoughts overall on how the draft went, and the trends he's noticing in fantasy football this year. So we won't hear from Evan tonight, but we will talk to him extensively on Friday on the HSFF Hour. Trey Burton is the second tight end drafted by Ryan Santos at the 7:01 tonight. And then Joe Stutzman gets his number 1 tight end, Jack Doyle, at the 7:02. Last night was a tight end friendly draft. Not the case tonight, as we are seeing some meanies out there doubling up on tight end.
Backstabbing.
Some tight end bullies out there.
Yep.
And it's forcing guys like Evan Silva to draft George Kittle in the 6th as his number 1 tight end. Drafting Joe Stutzman drafting Jack Doyle in the 7th as his number 1 tight end.
These guys are saying it's like the guy in The Hangover. Once he gets his tooth pulled out, he's like, "What is going on?"
Yeah. And not only that, I think the worst form, or the worst example, is SportsInjuryPredictor.com's Jason Rock Phelps taking the sports injury prediction of Jordan Reed as his number 1 tight end here in the 6th round.
Well, it's interesting because Reed is if you look at his probability of getting hurt, but then you look at his upside if he doesn't get hurt, and I think that's a reasonable calculation that Phelps probably made, saying that there's a huge drop-off after Reed. You go say Kittle, Trey Burton, Jack Doyle, and those guys are way lower value, much lesser talent. They don't have the upside of Jordan Reed, but they have less of an injury possibility. So I think he just took that shot, and then hopefully he'll back it up with a few different guys that aren't as likely to get hurt.
Do you see? We'll get into this later on. When I talk about this year's Kareem Hunt or this year's Alvin Kamara. Kamara was drafted basically in the 14th, 15th, sometimes even later rounds last year. We'll get into when we get to those rounds, we'll talk about who's going in there who could be this year's Kamara.
Just to do a reveal, there isn't one every year.
No, there's
a lot of years. There's not this year is whatever BS guy from the last year.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it.
Okay. Great.
But there could be. Yeah. So
and Kelsey and Gronk could combine for 46 touchdowns.
Your Honor, permission to treat the witness as hostile, granted. So what you're saying is there could be a this year's Alvin Kamara. Isn't that true, Mr. Gerzak?
Sure, there could be.
The defense rests.
I mean, there could be 6 Hurricanes that cancel 6 games this year. Lots of things are possible.
Why would you even bring something
There's
like
all sorts of stuff that could happen that's never happened.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on. Well, here's
read some of that Inserto by Nassim Taleb, and you'll find out.
Julian Edelman is the pick right after Jack Doyle. Julian Edelman, the number 3 receiver by Evan Silva here tonight. Carlos Hyde to Mark Pennington at the 704. A couple of receivers right after that. The anti-Gerzak pick this year, Corey Davis, goes to Jason Rock-Phelps. And then Emmanuel Sanders right after that to Eric Danowski.
Looking good in camp.
The number 3, Manny Sanders is?
No, Corey Davis.
Oh, Corey Davis. You still hate him though, don't you?
Yeah, mostly.
Oh, God. Corey, I mean, it's mid-7th for a guy who is like, could be awesome. I don't even know why we keep having this conversation again.
He could be awesome. He didn't participate in the combine, and he had 375 yards.
That was last year.
375 yards and no touchdowns.
Last year.
Right.
It's all ancient history, man. God forbid
It's all ancient history, and except for
a guy,
happening.
God forbid a battered rookie could actually get healthy and better. I mean, that never happened.
Anything could happen.
Oh,
Here we go. Keep it going. This is if I have a team full of coulds, I have a team full of crap. I want a team that's actually full of guys that should. Go ahead.
That was pretty good. That's our quote of the night. Emmanuel Sanders to Eric Danowski after Corey Davis. Deshaun Watson is the number 3 quarterback chosen tonight. He goes to Howard Bender in the 7th round. And then 4 straight running backs go off the board. A little bit of a mini running back run here as Mike Maloney takes Kerryon Johnson. Kevin Coleman goes to Graham Barfield from Fantasy Guru. Joe and Tom Delzanero take Duke Johnson. Jamal Williams to Jake Seeley. And then a tight end rounds out the 7th round. That's Jared Cook as the number 1 tight end to John Kleinfelter and Dave Byer. We talked about what could happen to these guys on the right side of the board not having a tight end, guys like Graham Barfield, guys like Jake Seeley and John Kleinfelter and Dave Byer there. And now we're looking at, we'll get to who Jake took as his first tight end in the 8th round. But Jared Cook is your number 1 tight end. If you're Kleinfelter and Byer, you can't be in love with that.
No.
I would have much rather. I mean,
I'm doing the emoji with the little tear on my.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I love Aaron Rodgers. He's going to have a great season, but I would have much rather taken a tight end there, given what I knew, at that point that, okay, there's three teams that have already doubled up on tight end. I should really grab one right here, and they chose Rodgers instead.
I know, and that's the thing is the problem for them was that the best tight end left was Jordan Reed, and then the rest of them. So it's a tough decision for them to make, or they could have gone receiver if they wanted to. Do you think that, and we're not inside the head of Jake Seeley, but do you think that the decision for him is, okay, I can try to grab a high-volume running back here or grab like a second, third-tier tight end, and he went with the running back instead, given that he only had one on his roster? Well, I mean, let's just see how the rest of his team turns out. I think Njoku is a good start to the taking 3 flyer type tight end strategy. So I think Njoku's good. He's a second-year guy who's super touted, very young. Like he's only 21 right now. So I think he's got some upside, but you can't count on him. So you need 2 other guys like that.
Yeah,
maybe 3.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I see your point there. Where you're going. I know you're not a big Lynch guy either. You don't like Marshawn Lynch this year.
No, he's like 40 years old.
He's not 40.
30 something.
He is probably 30 something. Okay, so let's kick off the 8th round here as it is just completed. We'll tell you what happened. Jamison Crowder is the selection at the 801 to Kleinfelter and Byer. David Njoku is the tight end, as we're referring to with Jake Seeley. So, it kind of stinks that's his number 1 tight end, but we don't exactly know what's going on with Josh Gordon. We know Jarvis Landry is there now, but after that, I mean, maybe David Njoku does have this big sophomore year breakout, and he finishes as like a top 8 tight end, top 7 tight end.
That's a good way to look at it, because if Josh Gordon's out, I mean, they have nobody. I mean, Corey Coleman, he's out there farting around. He sucks.
Yeah, as far as like a big target goes, it's Njoku.
Right.
And there's not much. I mean, you have the 3 running backs, but that's a totally different.
You expect some level of competency at quarterback.
I expect a high level of competency at quarterback with Tyrod Taylor there.
I do, actually. Well, it's not going to over 4,000 yards, so he'll be all right.
Yeah. So David Njoku is the 802 pick by Jake Seeley from Fantasy Sports Network. Cooper Kupp goes to Joe and Tom Delzanero at the 803, followed by Randall Cobb to Graham Barfield. Dave, if I was to ask you which of those receivers you'd rather have this year, would it be Cooper Kupp or would it be Randall Cobb?
Very funny.
Yeah.
Granted, I like Cobb, and I don't like Cobb. So
yeah, that was the
that.
joke because I think as far as the Dave Gerzak wide receiver spectrum goes this year, on one end you have Cooper Kupp, who Dave absolutely loves. Then on the other end you have Randall Cobb, who Dave does not care for whatsoever. And then on the very, very end of like the spectrum in some other galaxy is Corey Davis.
Whatever.
And I think that is how
I like Corey Davis much more than Cobb.
You need
much more than Cobb.
You really?
Yeah, Cobb is a 600-yard, 4-touchdown wide receiver for consecutive years with a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame quarterback.
Well,
I mean, what the hell?
He had Brett Hundley thrown to him for a good chunk of
yes,
life.
of course, excuses.
You know,
Cooper Kupp, by the way.
I love it when
he's number one in the NFL against press coverage, Cooper Kupp, and number one in the NFL against off coverage. He's like number one against everything.
I have a question. Why, when I bring up a fact, is it an excuse when it doesn't fit your particular narrative? And when it does fit your narrative, it's a reason.
You know why? I'll tell you why. I'm a Republican. Thank you very much.
Oh, great. You know, that was the total appropriate response there. Nick Chubb.
Make America great again, folks.
Nick Chubb is the selection right after Randall Cobb. Nick Chubb is the number 3 running back drafted by Mike Maloney. The pass-catching Chris Thompson goes to Howard Bender right after that as his number 3 running back. Devin Funchess is the 4th receiver chosen by Eric Danowski here in the 8th round. And then you have Russell Wilson as the number 4 quarterback off the board to Jason Phelps. I was just going to say that. I thought getting Russell Wilson in the 8th round, I think, is a steal right here as your number 1 quarterback.
Silva did a nice one, two more.
Well, we'll get to it in a little bit. Talk a little bit about, because we haven't talked about Russell Wilson a ton on the show. We've talked about the running game. We've talked about Baldwin. But the fact that Seattle's offensive line is, you know, you'd like to think it got a little bit better. The fact that they do soak a first-round pick into Rashad Penny, let Graham go, they let Paul Richardson go. What does all this mean for Russell Wilson's performance this year? Or do you think, by and large, it won't affect it because so much of Russell Wilson's fantasy value comes on the strength of his legs? What are your thoughts there on Wilson?
I mean, Russell Wilson is a phenomenal fantasy quarterback. He was the number 1 quarterback in fantasy last year. The year before, he was injured, and then before that, I mean, he's a superstar, and he's got a high floor because he does run the ball, and he's in the prime of his career. He's just a fantastic, great player, and he got married. You know, I remember saying that one year, and I'm like, oh, he got married, so he's gonna have an off year, and he actually did have an off year, but it was because of his injury. But
I guess I don't remember that.
Oh no, but he's still in the prime of his career.
We spew a lot of BS on the show, so
but I mean, he's still fine, and you know. He had 586 rushing yards last year, 3 touchdowns on only 95 attempts, 34 touchdowns, 11 picks, 3,983 passing yards. I like that. We're going to lose Jimmy Graham, but I mean, he'll figure it out. He's going to do just fine.
I mean, is there similarity there between Aaron Rodgers and him where, you know, I don't want to say it doesn't matter what you put around Rodgers because he's going to make everybody great. And maybe Wilson doesn't make everybody great, but regardless of what happens, Wilson's fantasy value it remains largely intact, even with the loss of Graham and Richardson and counting on a rookie running back to really carry that rushing game.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
The question.
You have a question?
Yes, I'm terribly sorry. I'm asking about the comparison between Rodgers and Wilson, where the supporting cast maybe do not matter as much as they would matter to some other quarterbacks.
Well,
as far as fantasy value goes,
Rodgers does have in a higher volume passing game. They throw it 600 times per year, versus Wilson's more in the 5s, like 520 to 550. So Rodgers does have that big advantage. So I think that's the difference. And Rodgers has a higher. I mean, Rodgers I think he had a 450-point fantasy year. Wilson hasn't. I don't think been quite that high. So you still have a little bit more of an upside with Rodgers.
Didn't he finish as the number 1 fantasy quarterback last year, Russell Wilson?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. But it was 415 fantasy points from what. That's weeks 1 through 17, by the way, not weeks 1 through 16.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so moving on past the Russell Wilson pick, Marlon Mack goes to Mark Pennington as the number 4 running back on that team. Tom Brady is Evan Silva's starting quarterback. Isaiah Crowell is the number 4 running back for Joe Stutzman. And then rounding things out in the 8th round is a guy that you had just been talking about probably about 5-10 minutes ago. And that's some pretty good value from Cam Newton. And one of the things I've noticed in this draft, We can talk about how we like the Cam Newton pick there, Dave. Quarterbacks are falling in this draft. Tight ends are rising. I think those are the two clear narratives that we're seeing. Russell Wilson has an ADP in FFPC best ball draft as the 608, and tonight he goes at the 808. So, I mean, that's two, or excuse me, is that the 809? No, 808.
What's his ADP?
608.
Wow, that's 24 pick value. That's so crazy.
Well, when you have Drew Brees blowing the board up, here in the 6th round, I think that that affects it.
That is nuts. And then where's Brady's ADP? Around the same?
I can look that up, Dave.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
He went 2 picks later to Silva. That was a really nice pick by Silva there at the 8-10.
Tom Brady. He's a quarterback.
He's a little bit late.
709.
Did you, by the way, did you hear that Garoppolo in some recent interview said that he thinks he's better than Brady?
That is not the quote I read. The quote I read, Garoppolo said that he had the belief that one day he would be able to outperform and take the job away from Brady, which to me is like a non-statement. I mean, obviously, just with age, eventually Garoppolo would be able to overtake Tom Brady. I mean, isn't that clear?
Yeah, eventually this Yoda guy's going to die off, and Luke Skywalker's going to be better than him.
Father Time is undefeated, my friend, and I don't see him making a special exception for Tom Brady. And don't sully the good name of Yoda by putting Tom Brady in there. Maybe Yoda was the original TB12.
Brady's better than Yoda.
Maybe he was the original TB12 subscriber.
Greater than Yoda.
Yeah.
How many rings does Yoda have? Exactly.
How many lightsabers does Tom Brady have? I'll tell you that right now. I don't see. Maybe Tom Brady used the Force to deflate all those footballs, and that's why he only got suspended 4 games because they couldn't hit it on him.
I'm sure the half ounce of football deflation is why they beat the Colts like 45-17 in that championship game.
I'm
sure that's the reason why they beat them by like 4 touchdowns.
Clearly, they felt there was a reason they needed to do it, Dave. And I'm not going to argue with Darth Belichick on that one. Kicking things off in the 9th round, Carson Wentz pairs with Ryan Santos' Cam Newton from the 8th round. So he gets Cam Newton and Carson Wentz in the 8th and 9th round. Love that. Chris Ivory is the...
I don't like the Wentz pick.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second.
Well, he's still hurt. He's not even going to be fully healthy.
It's a 9th round pick.
Yeah, he's getting drafted ahead of all these other players that are healthy.
Okay, okay, these guys are all off the board. Let's do would you rather with Carson Wentz. Would you rather have Carson Wentz or Matthew Stafford?
Stafford.
I disagree. Would you rather have Carson Wentz or Andrew Luck?
Wentz.
Clearly. Carson Wentz or Kirk Cousins?
I'll take Wentz.
I agree. Carson Wentz or Ben Roethlisberger?
Wentz.
I agree. Carson Wentz or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Garoppolo.
Would you rather have Garoppolo than Wentz?
Sure. All right, maybe not. But my point is that...
I'm just thinking like that.
My point, though, is that...
Hold on, last one. Carson Wentz or Phillip Rivers?
I'll take Wentz.
Okay, so out of all these guys that were going after him, you said you'd rather have one of these other guys than Wentz and maybe Garoppolo.
But I don't necessarily have to take a quarterback there. I could have taken a different position and waited on a quarterback.
All right.
I just think that he's not even fully healthy. Yeah, he's still recovering from the injury. That was a late season ACL.
Yeah, it was, and he shredded it. I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
And they have a fully capable Nick Foles there to take weeks. When is their bye week, by the way?
I don't, are you looking it up? I don't want to look it up.
I haven't even looked up. I haven't even looked up the news on the Eagles. But I'm just wondering if their bye week is like week 7. I would not doubt if they hold them out for a while.
Ooh,
they
boy.
They have an awesome team. Why would they have to play?
I mean, they do have Nick Foles too, I guess.
Bye week is week 9. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying. Why wouldn't they do that? If he's not fully healthy, what's the point? Why bring him back early? If
what if they
can still helm the team? They won the damn Super Bowl.
What if they get off to like a 2-4 start or something like that? I mean, then that's a massive mistake.
Well, yeah, then it is a mistake. Yeah. But again, if he's hurt, what are you going to do? You can't force the guy back. Well, I guess you can. You have James Woods.
Robert Griffin.
James Woods is your position.
Yeah, exactly. It was not James Woods, but James Woods' character from Any Given Sunday.
He's a great player, follow.
Carson Wentz is a warrior.
James Woods.
Let's get into what happened after Chris Ivory, who went at the 902 to Stutzman. O.J. Howard is the number 2 tight end drafted by Evan Silva. Tyler Eifert is the number 1. The number 1 tight end for Mark Pennington going in the 9th round.
Surprised Rock Phelps didn't take it.
Pierre Garcon coming off the season-ending neck injury, goes to his sports injury predictors, Jason Rock Phelps. I feel bad. We're giving Jason a hard time, but
no, we're having fun with it.
It's all
he's not calling him.
Listen, he knows what he's doing, and more importantly, he analyzes these injuries a lot closer than we do. So I'm not going to throw him under the bus because he's got more information at the touch of his hand than I do. Aaron Jones right after that to Eric Danowski, and then Sterling Shepard, the receiver for the Giants, is the number 3 receiver drafted by Howard Bender. Matthew Stafford goes to the team after Howard Bender. Mike Maloney. God, I don't know. I always miss that. Matthew Stafford is a starting quarterback. Robert.
I tell you shouldn't miss this team. This is an interesting and good team at number 8.
Oh, Mike Maloney with the double tight end?
I like this team a lot.
All right, we'll talk about it in a little bit. Robert Woods is the selection to Graham Barfield from Fantasy Guru. Robbie Anderson is the 9-10 pick tonight, and then a couple of quarterbacks end the round. Jake Seeley takes Andrew Luck, and then Kirk Cousins goes to Kleinfelter and Beyer at the 9-12. So Luck is the number 1 quarterback for Seeley. We talked about the value that was falling to him tonight, and he definitely took advantage, but it came at a price, and that price is David Njoku as your starting tight end and Andrew Luck as your starting quarterback. Maybe it doesn't matter, in the grand scheme of things, because he will have the opportunity to fill in some depth there. And he maybe doesn't need the receiver depth that he probably thought he was going to need at before the draft started. Because of those top 3 selections.
I mean, he has Luck and Roethlisberger. I mean, what's wrong with that? That could be the best quarterback duo out of this whole thing.
And that's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming from me. Who I think Andrew Luck is not going to. I don't think he's going to have a great season. I think he's going to have reduced throwing velocity if he even plays all year. And but you have Big Ben. I mean, Big Ben's he's a rock out there. So it's worth a shot.
Yeah, no, I'm on board with Ben Roethlisberger again this year.
Why not?
I think that he is.
If you're taking Antonio Brown 4th overall, why? What's wrong with Big Ben Roethlisberger? Nothing. And
Juju Smith-Schuster in the 4th round, and Le'Veon Bell still like a number 1, number 2 overall pick. And who's the other guy that I'm forgetting? Smith-Schuster. Washington's getting a lot of love lately too.
Oh, James Washington.
Yeah. So
whoever, Vance McDonald, Jesse James, whatever.
Well, there's a lot of people talking about Vance McDonald. I guarantee you he goes high tonight, given how these tight ends are flying off the board too. So we'll see what happens there. So that was the completion of round 9. Let's move on to round 10 here. After Kirk Cousins was selected by Kleinfelter and Beyer, the Fat Bastards take Devontae Parker, who falls to the 10:01 tonight. And I have to look this up, Dave. I'm not really sure where he's going. He goes at the 9:07 in FFPC. Okay, so that's about right. I thought it was some value there, but maybe not. Ben Roethlisberger to Jake Seeley, as Dave already mentioned, to pair with Andrew Luck is his top 2 quarterbacks there. The Delzaneros take Jimmy Garoppolo as their number 1 quarterback. Charles Clay is the number 1 tight end for Graham Barfield. I got to believe he's regretted passing on tight end as long as he did.
Hey, Clay could be the number 1 receiver on that team.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like, how does that work out? If
Ray Jones, steps through some hotel room glass and.
Well, plus you have Kelvin Benjamin, who I think is still battling a knee issue, and then you have LaShawn McCoy, who we really don't know what's going to happen.
And who's the quarterback? A.J. McCarron,
or
Nathan Peterman,
or the hyper-accurate Josh
Allen.
Yeah. So. A good catch radius for Charles Clay, so maybe that works out in Josh Allen's favor. Just get it close to him, Josh. He'll bring it in.
Right through his hands again. You don't have to throw it 70 miles an hour for a 10-yard pass.
Yeah, he's like Ronnie Bass and Remember the Titans. Remember he could throw it a country mile, but he couldn't do the pitch.
He's like
the running back.
Will Durham.
Yeah, exactly. $1 million arm, 10-cent head. We don't know if he has a 10-cent head though. So I'll reserve judgment.
Josh Allen had a 37 wonder look. He's pretty smart.
Oh yeah, that's a $100 head right there.
Going to Wyoming, you probably have a 4.0. That's cool.
Phillip Rivers is the selection right after Charles Clay. Phillip Rivers, the backup quarterback for Mike Maloney's team. Corey Clement, drafted by Howard Bender right after that. Howard takes him at the 10:06. Marquise Goodwin is the selection at the 10:07 tonight to Eric Danowski. That is his number 5 receiver. C.J. Anderson comes off the board as the number 5 running back for Jason Rock Phelps from Sports Injury Predictor. C.J. Anderson, by the way, this is a position that Phelps took 4 running backs to kick off the draft. Does not take another one now until the 10th round, where Anderson goes as his number 5. Jordy Nelson is the selection for Mark Pennington. And then Evan Silva takes Nelson Aguilar at the 10-10. Marquise Lee, the quote-unquote number one receiver for Jacksonville, goes to Joe Stutzman. And then Giovanni Bernard completes round 10. The backup running back to Joe Mixon in Cincinnati is the number 4 running back for Ryan Santos' team from the 1 spot tonight here in the Pros versus Joes. The Upside Down League number 2. Do you have a favorite pick in that 10th round there, David? And when we talked about Garoppolo, we talked about Roethlisberger, talked a little bit about Clay. Is there any other pick that stands out to you? I mean, for me, I still really like Marquise Lee going at, again, a guy who might be their number 1 receiver, and you can get him at the end of the 10th round.
Yeah, I think Marquise Goodwin's actually kind of an interesting pick as well. I've never been a huge fan of him, but he's the number 1 wide receiver for the team. They've signed him to a pretty good contract. And you got Garoppolo thrown to him, and he's just pretty productive.
He was fantastic when Garoppolo took over last year. Down the stretch, he was awesome.
It's weird, Goodwin is one of those super rare receivers that's having like this late career, late stage kind of breakout, and we'll see if it continues through this year.
I will say this about
super fast
Marquise Goodwin.
He's a track guy.
When Kyle Shanahan took over as the San Francisco head coach, he said, and I remember in some interview, he said that for whatever reason, wherever Goodwin's been, be it Buffalo or whatever throughout his NFL career, coaches always viewed him as a pure speed guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's all he is. We're just going to send him on the 9 route, let him go, try to stretch the defense, that's it. Kyle Shanahan said that was wrong. Marquise Goodwin is a wide receiver, not just like a burner, and he's never been able to have that reflected in the offense he's playing in. Well, Kyle Shanahan gave him the opportunity to be a receiver last year, not just a speed merchant.
That's like a breath of fresh air.
And look what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, he really turned it on, crushed it down the stretch.
Good for him. That's all. I hope the best for Goodwin and Shanahan.
Now,
a perspective like that.
From the flip side of that, Pierre Garçon was also out. And, say what you will about Dante Pettis and his impact year 1, but he wasn't on the team. So there will be competition. There's a lot of people, by the way, who are really starting to turn me on to. Wouldn't take him in a 20-round draft, but in a best ball, Trent Taylor.
Yeah, he's been talked about by a lot of those guys.
As a late round flyer. So, be that as it may, maybe the beneficiary, like the Mahomes theorem, it's Jimmy Garoppolo we should be liking there. So.
Speaking of your boy Mahomes, he's still out there.
Yeah, I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
5 rounds after Breeze got there.
I feel like I'm in the Pros versus Joe's green room right now, and I'm Patrick Mahomes' agent. Sitting next to him, and they read off the Mike Maloney takes Phillip Rivers, Eric Danowski takes quarterback Matt Ryan, and I'm just like looking at Mahomes is looking at me like, dude, what is going on? And I'm just like, and then I'll like fake like I'm getting a phone call, like and then I'll point to it, like this is it, this could be it. No, it was Marcus Mariota. So. Yeah, it's surprising. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 quarterbacks off the board. Not one of them is Mahomes. That's interesting.
He might go here to the dozen arrows.
That was the 10th round. Let's get in the 11th and tell people what's going on there. Naheem Hines goes to Ryan Santos there at the 11:01. Mike Gesicki is the number. Have we come up on it's the 11:02 pick? Have we come up on a proper pronunciation for is it Gesicki, Jessica?
My prediction with him is that you're not going to need to know his name this year.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't think he's going to do anything in fantasy.
Devontae Booker is the 11:03 selection to Evan Silva, and Calvin Ridley goes after that at the 11:04 to Mark Pennington. This is the second straight draft. We saw J.J. Zachariason do it last night. He drafted Royce Freeman and then did not, make an attempt really to get Devontae Booker on his team. Tonight, Royce Freeman goes to who? He went early. Why am I not seeing him before?
504.
Okay, Mark Pennington. Yeah, takes Royce Freeman. Doesn't really make an attempt to get Devontae Booker.
He might have gotten sniped on him. He would have had to gotten him in the 10th.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you take him in the 10th if you are?
What's his ADP though? I thought it was more like 12 or 13.
Booker?
Yeah. I think last night he went in the 13th.
Yeah, 12:04. Okay, so you could be right on that. Last night, Devontae.
You might have been planning to get him at the 11:04 and you got screwed there.
That's also entirely possible. I'm looking at where he went in the draft last night, and I'm not.
I thought it was like 13:01 or 12:12, but I might be.
How do you remember this kind of stuff? Oh my God, 13:01.
Woo, baby!
How about that? Yeah.
All right, love it.
That's insane. They don't call him the Dizzle for nothing, ladies and gentlemen. Calvin Ridley, like I said, to Mark Pennington. Austin Safarian-Jenkins, the backup tight end for Jason Rock-Phelps. Matt Ryan, the number 1 quarterback chosen by Eric Danowski. You know, he waits until round 11 to take a number 1 quarterback. I'm totally fine with Matt Ryan as my number 1 quarterback this year.
Totally not. It's not bad.
Now the question is, in a best ball format, is he going to be able to get 2 other guys that,
he'll be fine.
Okay.
You know, Alex Smith is always out there super late. That guy threw for his half a zillion yards and he runs the ball. And he's the Redskins.
You know who else is out there? Patrick Mahomes is still out there, too.
Mahomes, baby.
Theo Riddick, right after that. Theo Riddick goes to Howard Bender. Ty Montgomery to Mike Maloney's team. And then Marcus Mariota, the starting quarterback for Graham Barfield's FantasyGuru.com entry. So that's interesting that he doesn't take a quarterback or tight end until round 10, Dave. And then
which team?
This is Graham Barfield from the 9 spot.
Yep.
He doesn't take a quarterback or tight end. It was all backs and receivers. Are we just going to see him pound all these quarterbacks and tight ends now over the next 4 or 5 rounds?
Probably for the next few rounds. I mean, he's got 4 running backs, really nice, and 5 wide receivers, again, really nice.
Just want to get
there he goes.
Just want to get a feel for the chat room right now, what they're saying. Sports Betting Man.
This is the worst broadcast.
I cannot believe Mahomes has not been picked. Shane P. Hallam. Mahomes should really be long gone.
See, look at that. They're all they're concurring with this ball team.
They're on my agent's.
Delta Arrow did take Mahomes, by the way.
There you go. All right, good for you. Good for you, Joe. Well, this week's wrapped up. Start previewing League 3 tomorrow. Marcus Mariota to Graham Barfield. Vance McDonald, I said he might go a little bit higher tonight. He goes up in the 11th round as the backup tight end to the Delta Arrows. And then Kelvin Benjamin at the 11-11, Eric Ebron is the final choice of the 11th round. Eric Ebron going to Kleinfelter, going to Bayer there as their number 2 tight end. We'll get into some team analysis here in a little bit as the 12th round is underway. We touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking about Charles Clay. Kelvin Benjamin, you have never been a fan. You look at where he's going this year.
Yeah, that's cheap. He's so cheap.
Yeah, the fact that he's a number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
He's almost like a guy I would target at this point.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic pick for Seeley. He totally ignores wide receivers. After round 5, he totally ignores them. And he gets Benjamin at the 11. What is it, 11-11? That's nice.
Yeah, and you know what his ADP is in FFPC best ball right now?
I do not.
1209.
Really?
Yeah.
He even went a little early.
He went a little early to get him. But, wouldn't you think that Kelvin Benjamin's ADP is going to rise rather than fall? How much further can it fall?
Almost think.
You could actually do really good in these best ball formats, maybe by pounding running backs early. But then think about these number 1 receivers that you could get late in drafts right now. There's a cavalcade of them. Kelvin Benjamin, you can get super late. He's a number 1 receiver. Alan Hearns, number 1 receiver that you can get super late. Robbie Anderson is a 9th round pick. In my opinion, that's kind of late for a number 1 receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You can get him kind of late, and the list goes on.
Yep.
If you're drafting with Dave,
name Alan Hearns, you just got picked.
If you're drafting with Dave Gerzak, Corey Davis will be available in the 19th round. You can get him super late.
Well, I would take Davis in the 7th or 8th.
17th or 18th? I'm sorry, I misheard you. But you know what I mean? There's a lot of number 1 receivers for whatever reason that are going late. So even if you miss out on these receivers early, you can get guys like this late.
Or a player like DJ Moore, who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for Carolina. They just don't realize it yet that they still think Funchess is.
What's the percentage chance that he
scores Funchess this year?
Yeah, okay, let's frame it like that.
You're about to find out that I'm a huge fan of him, if you didn't know that. I'm going to say 70%.
I was going to say 55.
That's crazy. So if you're saying 55 and he's not been picked yet, Funchess won the 8th round.
Yeah.
And you know this because you play Dynasty. If you throw Devin Funchess out in trade offers, people are like, it's like you threw them poison ivy.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, no one wants Devin Funchess.
Yeah.
They think he's awful.
Yeah. Well, they thought he was all right until the Panthers used the 1st round pick on DJ Moore. And then it was like impossible to trade. I started trading him before, like proactively, because I thought Carolina was going to target a receiver early. And I still couldn't get anything of value from Funchess. And then my offers went down. I couldn't even get a 2nd round pick for Funchess.
No, Funchess was wide receiver 21 last year. That's pretty nuts. You think about it.
And granted, that was with Greg Olson missing a lot of games.
It
too.
was with Wilson missing a lot of games.
So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. Cameron Meredith is the first selection of the 12th round here to Fat Bastards, John Kleinfelter and Dave Byer, here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hours coverage of the Pros vs. Joes League Number 2 draft. This is the Upside Down League. All with the leagues this year, we haven't touched on this, they all have a Stranger Things theme. I do not watch Stranger Things. I've heard nothing but great things about Stranger Things.
Fantastic show.
And
you should watch it. Have you wiki it?
No.
It's actually good.
Yeah, I have.
It's a Netflix show?
I kind of know. Yeah, it is. It deals with the supernatural and communicating with people, beyond the grave or something. Is that accurate?
No, not exactly.
Just in a different dimension. And I know it's set in the 80s.
Just watch it. Yeah, it's in the 80s.
All right.
Good.
I'll check it out. By the way,
really good.
We were talking about the Michael Fassbender movie, The Snowman. And how bad, because I said, I kind of wanted to see that.
The only reason we were talking about Michael Fassbender is because I watched Tomb Raider with my family the other night, and Alicia Vikander? Yeah. We agreed that she's hot, and then we're like, oh, she's married, and she's married to this Michael Fassbender, who was in Inglourious Basterds.
Right.
Anyway.
He was Magneto in X-Men.
All right, great.
The young Magneto.
He's a handsome guy. Good for her. Good for him. Whatever.
I wanted to see that, and you're like, oh, did you see the Rotten Tomatoes rating? It was terrible. I'm like, yeah, I can't see that. So I was, my daughter wanted to watch a show tonight, and I was flipping through our DVR trying to get to Peppa Pig, and I see the Snowman was on there because I taped it. I'm like, delete, got rid of that.
You ditched it.
Real quick, yeah. Not a fan.
Not a fan. This is a Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, that was enough. That's enough for me.
5.1 on IMDb. That's a pretty dreadful rating.
That is dreadful.
Even Rampage got a 6.2 for God's sakes.
Let me ask you this: what's worse?
Don't shoot the contaminated 12'8", even though it's going to kill all these people later. Thanks a lot, Rock. He's killed 100 people.
Let me ask you this:
yeah, go ahead.
What's worse, the movie The Snowman or Corey Davis in the 6th round?
I would rather say Corey Davis.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Cameron Meredith, like I said, to Kleinfelter and Byer at the 12:01. Doug Martin goes right after that at the 12:02. So Seeley locking up that Las Vegas Raiders running back backfield, getting Lynch and Martin there.
That was smart. I mean, that makes the Lynch pick less not good.
Don't you think that?
It makes it better. It makes it solid, I guess.
How much attention do you pay to handcuffs in like 20-round classic leagues?
It really has to depend on a lot of the situation, really.
Okay. So a guy that's the clear-cut handcuff with some upside on a good offense, you'd be interested.
Yeah, for sure. If I think he's a talented player, yeah.
Don't you think that interest expands more?
I don't think Doug Martin's all that talented anymore, by the way.
I get it. Don't you think that interest in handcuff expands more in a 12-team, like, not private, I don't know what I'm saying, like closed league like this?
A best ball league?
A best ball league where you're just competing against 11 other teams. Don't you think that handcuff situation
I think
is more attractive?
Best ball especially, I think it's important to handcuff when you can.
So it's
or pair off, I think even taking the first and second down back and the third down back, like if you took Shelby and Duke Johnson, that's not bad because you'd hope one of them is going to have a 15-point week or higher.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. That's for sure a good point. Patrick Mahomes, my God, his slide has finally ended. He's wearing the Dells and Arrows baseball cap on the stage right now, shaking hands with Commissioner Alex Kaganovsky, congratulating him.
That's nice visual. Thank you.
And and so now we have I'm trying to think, Adam Schefter or somebody interviewing him and saying there was 17 mistakes picked in front of me. I'm about to show the Dells and Arrows what they just got. And their backup quarterback, Mahomes, pairs with Garoppolo then for the Dells and Arrows. Jared Goff to Graham Barfield is his number 2 quarterback. Alan Hearns, who I mentioned earlier, goes to Mike Maloney. Chris Carson, the starting running back in Seattle, goes in the 12th round to Howard Bender. Alex Smith, the guy that Gerzak was talking about earlier, he is the number 2 quarterback drafted by Eric Danowski. The quarterbacks are very cheap right now, flying off the board. Cameron Brate, the number 3 tight end drafted by Jason Phelps from Sports Injury Predictor, there at the 12:08. And then Dak Prescott coming off the board as the backup to Drew Brees on Mark Pennington's squad. Austin Hooper, the number 3 tight end drafted by Evan Silva. I'm not a big Austin Hooper guy, Dave, but Austin Hooper is my number 3 tight end in a best ball format. I think that's pretty good value, especially when you're getting him in the 12th round. Blake Bortles is the number 1 quarterback for Joe Stutzman. I believe the last team to draft a quarterback in this draft, he gets Blake Bortles in the 12th round. And I got to tell you, Dave, totally fine with that too.
Well, it's getting a little dicey.
Remember, it's best ball.
Yeah,
so if he adds 2 more guys onto that, I mean, you'd like to think that one of those guys is going to hit.
Think about Bortles. He was very productive last year. I mean, everyone loves to hate him, but he was actually all right. I don't love him, but I mean, I have him on one dynasty team. I'm not getting rid of him yet.
Another guy I like here, another great pick by Ryan Santos here at the end of the 12th, Kenny Stills. And let me tell you, he's going to need Stills to come through because Stills is, through 12 rounds, is his number 3 wide receiver on his roster. Only 3 wide receivers for Ryan Santos.
Whoa.
Now, we should mention this for people who are not familiar with the FFPC format. Tight ends get 1.5 points per catch, whereas receivers and running backs only get 1. So there's more of an emphasis on getting tight ends. As far as your lineup goes, you start a quarterback, you start 2 running backs, you start 2 receivers, you start a tight end, a kicker, and a defense. However, you can flex out 2 different positions. So you could start 3 tight ends on any given week, or 4 receivers, or 4 running backs. So the fact that Ryan Santos only has 3 receivers on his team maybe is you're throwing up the red flags on this squad. Remember, he only needs to start 2 on any given week, and he already has a high volume 2 high volume receivers, in my opinion, in both Baldwin and Crabtree. So that seems weird to see, Dave, but I think it could work out for Ryan Santos there.
I guess we'll find out.
We will find out indeed. And by the way, if you want to get updates on the Pros versus Joes leagues, how they're going throughout the season, Fantasy Mojo will have coverage on this at his website, Darren Armani, fantasymojo.com. And if you subscribe to the FFPC Insider newsletter, which is completely free, I will post some updates in there throughout the season as well, so you can follow how these teams are going. There is no prize for the overall champ, but the individual league champ in each of these leagues will get a 2019 FFPC main event entry valued at, what, $1,800?
We're still doing that?
Yeah.
I told Alex to get rid of that.
No. We're still doing it.
Crap.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you. That's what it's valued at.
Yeah, $1,800. Even more possibly.
Yeah. And we have a former main overall champ tonight, drafting Jake Seeley. So this
he won the main event? Jake Seeley?
No. Overall champ in the Pros versus Joes.
Oh.
To be honest with you, I don't know how his FFPC team turned out. As we enter round 13 here, Dave, we can crank out a couple more rounds here. Ricky Seals-Jones is the number 3 tight end drafted by Ryan Santos. So he has as many tight ends as he does receivers through 13 rounds. I love it. Only in the FFPC. Derek Carr is the backup quarterback to Blake Bortles for Joe Stutzman. And then Mitchell Trubisky is backing up Tom Brady for Evan Silva this year. Saw the report coming out today from some beat reporter in Chicago saying that Trubisky thus far has been inconsistent. Hard to put much stock in that right now, given that it is so early in the process. I do love the fact that the Bears are playing in the Hall of Fame game this year, so Trubisky gets a chance, more of an opportunity to work with Robinson and Gabriel and Miller and Howard and Cohen and Shaheen and Burton and all those guys there. That's certainly going to be good for his potential as a quarterback this year, taking a step forward. They also said the offense obviously is much more complicated than John Fox's, snap it and hand it off offense that they were doing last year.
What has Nagy said? Nagy said that Trubisky is the best guy since sliced bread, because if he hasn't, that means he's sucks.
Yeah, honestly, that is a great point. If Matt Nagy is critical of anybody, that's a red flag.
Not even critical. If he's just like, well, Trubisky's coming along, he's doing good. If he says that's like saying he sucks.
That's a great point.
He's Mr. Effusive.
Who is a more positive coach, Matt Nagy or Pete Carroll?
Oh, Nagy for sure.
But I mean, was it Chris Carson that broke his leg last year, and Pete Carroll's like, hopefully we'll get him back in a week, something like that. Like, he's gonna fight through it. A lot of times these broken bones, it's mind over matter, and he's got a strong mind. Chris Carson, great mentality. Bilal Powell is the selection to Mark Pennington at the 1304. Rashard Matthews right after that to Jason Rock-Phelps. And then Jameis Winston, the 3rd consecutive quarterback drafted by Eric Danowski. So you have a guy, an FFPC Joe and Danowski, waiting until round 11 to select quarterback. He goes 3 straight quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, Alex Smith, and Jameis Winston. You can do a lot worse than that.
I like that. I think there's overall tight end. coupled with quarterback strategy, was really strong, Danowski.
Tyrell Williams to Howard Bender right after that, and Henry Muda was just in the chat room asking, hey, when is the Jaguars defense going to be selected? And they go off in the 13th round. Once again, a slide from where they normally go. Jacksonville's defense goes to Mike Maloney there, adding to his treasure trove of draft selections. Benjamin Watson, the number 2 tight end, selected by Graham Barfield. Dave's boy, DJ Moore, going to Joe and Tom Delzanero. Were you in Joe Delzanero's ear on that pick, telling him to take DJ Moore?
I want Joe to call in. I know I was not on his ear. He should call in.
Okay, well, the office out there. Jake Butt, the tight end from Denver. Jake Seeley takes him as his backup tight end, and then James White completes round 13 to Kleinfelter and Beyer. I want to apologize to the 516. We kept you on hold a little bit longer than we wanted to, but 516, you're on the air with Dave and Balky for the Pros vs. Joes coverage. Who's this?
Hey, guys. It's Ryan Santos.
Hey, FF Links himself.
Going on, guys?
I didn't think.
Why would we leave someone on the air on hold for so long?
Because I was trying
not
to.
Looking?
I wasn't trying to not look, but I got a lot of pokers in the fire here, and I just missed it. So Ryan, early you're 13 rounds. You're coming up on the halfway point of this draft. How does this one compare to some of the other FFPC best balls that you've done so far this season? Is this a team that you're pretty proud of?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. A little less wide receivers than I like to have, but that Cam Carson Wentz pick on the turn.
Yeah, I was a bigger fan of that than Dave was, but
that Wentz pick sucked.
Yeah, I know you don't like the Wentz pick. We both.
I'm just kidding. I like to say it. I like to say it when you're on the air.
I like both those picks, and definitely I like the Wentz pick more than Dave did. How much of this? I mean, have you had a team so far this season, a best ball team, that you've had this few receivers this deep into the draft?
To be honest, I'm not too sure, but I've tried a couple different strategies, so I'm sure I have a couple of them.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
When you noticed Maloney doubling up on tight ends the first 2 rounds, Bender and Danowski doubling up on tight ends in the first 6 rounds, I know you were happy to already have Ertz on your roster, but take me through the thought process on when you obviously got Trey Burton in the 7th, but you knew that there was going to be a premium put on tight ends now, and how much did that change your strategy, knowing that these tight ends are going to be flying off the board?
Yeah, especially being at the end. I might have reached for Burton a little bit, but I knew he definitely wasn't making it back, and it was kind of getting a little thin at the position.
I thought that Burton pick was nice, actually.
Yeah, I did too.
It was good. Did you take? I mean, I know you kind of covered that a little bit, Balky, but did you take Ertz as that number 3 tight end because of him stacking those first two with Gronk and Kelsey, or no?
No, I was pretty much hoping that Ertz would fall to me in that trade.
I gotcha.
You have a good number of running backs. We talked about the Rashad Penny pick. We talked about the Lamar Miller pick. I look at this team, and I like the fact that you have 3 tight ends on your roster, even though you only have the 3 receivers. And that third tight end is Ricky Seals-Jones in the 13th round. We know about his these allegations and charges where he was arrested in Arizona. Do you think that affects him at all? Will he be facing a suspension? And did that affect when were you willing to take him earlier had he not been facing these, or did it not really come into play?
It didn't really come into play. That's probably the area that I would have felt comfortable taking him. I really wanted to go another receiver there, but the tight end was pretty much fell off a cliff right after Ricky Seals Jr. and Benjamin Watson for me. So
you have an accomplished FFPC drafter right next to you, and Joe Stutzman, Evan Silva right next to him. Did you get sniped on any picks tonight? Any guys that you were all ready to click the draft button and then they went right before you?
Yeah. The guy number 2 pretty much sniped me the first 3 rounds on that turn.
Really? That's unfortunate.
Yeah, he took
A.J.
Green, Mark Ingram, and Jarvis Landry right before I wanted him.
Yeah. He's definitely good for sure. But we know you're good as well. You're putting together a strong roster here. And Ryan, I appreciate you calling in. I want to thank you for doing all that you do as far as Twitter and promoting the FFPC and all your drafts there. You are also doing some work for Dynasty Football Factory. What can you tell us about your work there?
I've been doing dynasty and redraft / best ball work. Been knocking out a few articles right around the prime time of draft time right now.
You're pulling double duty then. You're drafting and also writing at the same time. And so you are engrossed, man.
Yeah, it's pretty exhausting.
Well, no, but I mean, like, it's the time of season. Ryan's just used to drafting.
He's writing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I just made a selection here, and I'm calling this up this article here. Blah, blah, blah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. We're thrilled that we can get into your mind at Dynasty Football Factory. All the work you do there. FF Links on Twitter. Are we gonna try to keep Ryan on for a
pick right here?
Yeah,
he's up in like 2-3 picks.
Yeah, Ryan, you're almost up right now. Can you hang on and make a pick?
In the mind of a genius, do you want to hear that?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so you right now we are.
I'm pretty sure I'll get
14.
sniped on this pick right now.
Yeah, well, for sure now. Don't tell us who it is.
Who do you want?
We don't. No. We don't want that hoodoo out there. This is a 28 round best ball draft, so this will actually complete the first half of the draft for you when it comes to you. You are currently on deck. Joe Stutzman.
Time to break out the scotch.
Yeah, Joe Stutzman is on the clock right here.
Keenum was not who you were going to pick.
You have three receivers, 2 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends on your roster. You have 5 running backs, and you are on the clock. Tell us who the pick is going to be here.
I'm going to go with Josh Doctson on this pick and try to get a couple more receivers here.
As long as you're on the turn, who's the pick after Doctson? Are you going to go receiver again?
I think I'm going to take Des Bryant. Hope for the best.
Yeah. All right.
And
I'm telling you, we saw Todd Burrows did it last night too, where he didn't have a whole lot of receivers, and then he gets Des Bryant. By the way, Todd Burrows and Ryan Santos, who have been on podcasts together before and share this sort of information. Guys who are very talented in best ball, both taking Des Bryant in the 15th round as opposed to Joe's. Everybody be paying attention. Ignore at your own risk.
I guarantee Des Bryant will be on TV this fall. He'll be Dancing with the Stars. It'll be some sort of celebrity chef show. Or maybe it'll be the NFL.
Yeah, or maybe he'll be covering the NFL.
It could be.
Yeah.
One of those things.
Sideline reporting with Jason Witten on Monday Night Football. That would be fantastic.
I don't think Des would be sideline.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Good.
Ryan, listen, man. Thanks so much for calling in. We really appreciate it. Best of luck to you in all your leagues this year, and we'll talk to you again soon, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you so much, Ryan. We appreciate that. At FF Links on Twitter, check out his work at DynastyFootballFactory.com. That was Ryan Santos.
Those are nice picks. That helped out his wide receiver deficiency quite a bit there.
By the way, Ryan Santos, who was he had the second best odds of winning this league tonight.
Your odds are so full of crap.
It's not my odds.
Whatever.
I don't understand.
You and Terre Haute, you and Javier.
I had nothing to do with it.
Right.
We have the show on Friday nights. You don't like the way a question's phrased or something on the rundown. I get blamed for it. I have nothing to do with it. And somehow I get thrown under the bus all the time.
Right.
Well, because I'm a Republican, Balky, that's why I do it.
Hey, look, I brought it up one time. You don't have to keep bringing yourself down. Pass blame.
Well, I'm not passing blame. I'm just citing what you said.
Hey, let's have a socialist movement and get into this last football guys draft night. There's 4 left.
That would be, what time does it start?
19 minutes. We might delay it for 15 as we get closer.
So 4 left, myffpc.com. We're going to cease the live coverage right now of the picks, and we're just going to go through team by team. So if you want to skip that and download and listen to it later, that's fine. Get in this draft. I think that's much more important. You just saw what Ryan Santos did at the turn. I think you should be using that knowledge to take advantage of everybody else in the Football Guys Players Championship. And you can thank us later when you're getting a $250,000 grand prize check at the end of December or January or whenever you get it, which will be very fast, by the way. It won't be like March. So anyway, let's get through some team analysis here today, Dave. We have fewer players to go through because this draft did not move as fast as last night's did. We'll kick it off with Ryan Santos' team here from the 1 spot. And all picks, I guess I'll keep reading all of them off, as many as I can get to here as the draft still goes on. But Ryan Santos, the running backs are Todd Gurley, Rashad Penny, Lamar Miller, Giovanni Bernard, Naheem Hines. The receivers are Doug Baldwin, Michael Crabtree, Kenny Stills, Josh Doctson, Des Bryant, tight end Zach Ertz, Trey Burton, Ricky Seals-Jones, Cam Newton, Carson Wentz. I really like this team. I think the question is, can he build enough depth at receiver to make this a dominant team. And I think if I want to be weak anywhere going into the second part of the draft, it might be receiver, and just take a lot of these high upside flyer type guys, and maybe that's enough to fill in the cracks. But I really like the rest of his roster.
I think if you look at his picks, a lot of them were very what I would call thoughtful picks. I mean, Zach Ertz, Trey Burton, Ricky Seals-Jones, in those spots are all really solid picks. Wentz, granted, I didn't like that one as much, but I get it. I mean, it's funny, you have Cam. Cam rarely gets hurt. Giovanni Bernard, Naheem Hines, I mean, those are, again, nice pass-catching backs in that spot. And I think he really made up for the receiver deficiency in the 12th, 14th, and 15th. So I like his team quite a bit as well.
Yeah, from the chat room, Henry Muto says that the Dez Bryant pick was a great pick. And Sports Betting Man says Ryan's wide receiver core went from yikes to
That's all right. Exactly.
Yeah. So and that's how quickly it can change in just one turn right there. You get Doxson, you get Dez Bryant, and look at what that can do to your team.
There's still some more opportunities for him later too, so he'll be all right.
Percentage chance that Dez Bryant is in an NFL uniform week 1.
75.
Percentage chance that he plays in the NFL this season.
85.
I think it's higher. But whatever. Okay, moving on. So we both like Ryan Santos' team. That's no surprise that we ended up liking that one.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, moving on to Joe Stutzman, the FFPC Joe, picking at 2, the running backs. Le'Veon Bell, Jordan Howard, Mark Ingram, Isaiah Crowell, Chris Ivory. The receivers, A.J. Green, Golden Tate, Jarvis Landry, Marquise Lee, Martavis Bryant. The tight ends, Jack Doyle, Mike Gesicki. The quarterbacks, Blake Bortles, Derek Carr, Case Keenum. Dave, I look at this roster, and I think he did a great job with the running backs. I like getting Crowell and Ivory in the 8th and 9th round. The fact that Ryan Santos already said how much he sniped him tonight makes me feel better about Joe Stutzman's team as well. I like the top 4 receivers really, and there's some upside with Martavis Bryant as well there. And I love the quarterbacks. The only question to me is he going to be able to build enough tight end depth? As I think that's his weakest position.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jack Doyle has to deal with Ebron. Gesicki is icky, so that's my problem.
Nice.
I like the running backs, I like the receivers.
How long did you have that one in the holster?
I just thought, whatever. I can think of stuff spontaneously. Well, it's okay.
Yeah.
I like the rest of his team. I'm just really worried about. I don't think Gesicki's going to do anything. I don't think Doyle's going to be a top 12 tight end. So I'm really concerned about that. He should take Luke Wilson.
That would be good.
There's my little tip.
There you go. Hashtag Dizzle tip. Evan Silva from Roto World was picking 3rd tonight. That's why I did it. Running backs, David Johnson, Jay Ajayi, Derrick Henry, Devontae Booker, and Latavius Murray are the running backs. Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Julian Edelman, Nelson Aguilar, Kenny Galladay at receiver. Tight ends, George Kittle, O.J. Howard, Austin Hooper. Quarterbacks, Tom Brady, Mitchell Trubisky. Dave,
this is the suckiest team I've ever seen.
Okay.
Silva's the worst.
I will say the opposite of that and be serious, as I think Dave is kidding as well. I'm not the biggest fan of Aguilar and Galladay, but I know that they have some big-time opportunities in front of them. Galladay obviously getting some preseason hype. Despite waiting until the 6th round to draft his first tight end in a draft where the tight ends are being pushed up, I thought he did a good job getting Kittle, Howard, and Austin Hooper in the 12th.
That's a nice set of tight ends.
And then Brady and Trubisky I'm totally fine with as well. I think this is a very balanced, very competitive team. We'll talk with Evan on Friday, but I don't have a lot of negative things to say about it.
Well, I like his team quite a bit. He doesn't have Ajayi and Henry are not the traditional pass-catching PPR backs that you look for, but they definitely have roles. They're good quality teams. So if he can get good scoring out of those guys, I think he's in good shape. You got great value with Keenan Allen and Mike Evans. So I think those 2 receivers, 14, 15 weeks out of 16 are going to be starting for him. But he does need Galladay to kind of break out, or he needs Aguilar to be productive. And so that's where my concern is at the depth of the receiver position.
I'm a little surprised that Kleinfelter and Beyer didn't go after Latavius Murray a little bit harder, too, given that their first-round pick was Dalvin Cook, and he is coming off the ACL. And, I mean, Latavius Murray, he didn't suck last year in Cook's stead. I mean, he wasn't great, but there's something there.
McKinnon was the guy who was doing it, though, last year.
Mostly, yeah. Moving on to Mark Pennington's team. The running backs, Devontae Freeman, Royce Freeman, Carlos Freeman, Marlon Mack, Bilal Powell in the backfield. Receivers, Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Cooks, Jordy Nelson, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, and Ted Ginn. The tight ends are Tyler Eifert and crickets. That's it. Quarterback.
I think I always count on Eifert.
Quarterback is Drew Brees, and Dak Prescott. So this squad, Dave, huge question.
Mark, please take Tyler Croft at the next step.
Yeah,
please
that'd be a good
Tyler
one.
Croft.
Croft, Luke Wilson.
Don't take Croft, Jason Rock-Phelps. Leave it for Pennington. Let him take it.
Well, Jason already has 3 tight ends on his roster,
right,
so it remains to be seen if he would take another
please.
one. Anyway.
For the love of God.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting breaking news from Justina Anderson here saying that the Chargers' preference is for free agent Antonio Gates to re-sign with the team before camp starts, and he's still out there too.
You know, this whole thing is like it's almost like 2 foreign nations communicating with each other, like North Korea and the United States. Like they don't want to talk directly, so they like send intermediaries. Like, well, yeah, you know, we like Antonio Gates, and then Gates' camp is like, oh yeah, we like the Chargers, and it's like they don't want to pay him the $7 million he wants, so they want to get him for as cheap as they can. And everyone knows he's coming in. He's going to be. Gates is the guy you should be drafting because he's super cheap right now because he's not actually signed. He's going to be playing for the Chargers. He's going to start. He's going to have 9 touchdowns. He's going right. What is he? We're going the 17th round here.
So I have a lot of problems with this team, with Mark Pennington's team here. I didn't like the Drew Brees pick in the 6th round, which I've already been pretty clear about. What I did like, I like the pairing of Ridley and Sanu. I thought that was a nice job there, and I think his receivers are solid.
Receivers are quite good.
I have some question marks with his first 2 running backs. Devontae Freeman, I'm not a big fan of this year. There's a lot of tread in those tires. Royce Freeman technically doesn't have the starting job locked up. I mean, that could be a committee all season. Carlos Hyde, you could say the same thing about him and Marlon Mack, who are his 3 and 4 running backs. And then he has committee, for sure committee guys in Bilal Powell and LeGarrette Blount after that. And the fact that he still only has 1 tight end on his roster through 16 rounds, and it's Tyler Eifert, that's the biggest red flag I can think of.
Yeah, that's the problem I have with the tight end is obviously problematic.
Moving on to Jason Rock-Phelps from SportsInjuryPredictor.com. Running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Jerick McKinnon, Joe Mixon, Kenyon Drake, C.J. Anderson. Receivers, Demaryius Thomas, Corey Davis, Pierre Garçon, Rashard Matthews, Paul Richardson. Tight ends, Jordan Reed, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Cameron Brate. Quarterbacks are Russell Wilson and Andy Dalton. I really like this team, Dave. I think unequivocally he has the best running backs in this whole league. And what he needs is, I'm a believer in Corey Davis. I think Pierre Garçon has a good season. I think Rashard Matthews is a little underrated. I know you like Paul Richardson maybe even more than me.
Yeah. Those receivers turned out all right.
Even if Reed gets hurt, I mean, to have Austin Seferian-Jenkins and Cameron Brate as your 2 and 3, I think that he did a good job on tight end.
That was great.
In a draft where you kind of had to scramble to get him.
Yeah, ASJ, I like that pick definitely, and I think his running backs are obviously killer. I think it's a really nice squad. I think Andy Dalton, a good veteran quarterback behind Wilson, is solid. Just because he has red hair, I mean, don't hate on the redheads, guys.
I thought he would pound receivers a little bit more, but even though he hasn't, he's been doing a good job getting some pretty good ones. So.
Yeah, I feel like the C.J. Anderson pick was a luxury/wasted pick. Like, he could have grabbed Jordy or Marquise Lee or Aguilar or Ridley or whoever, because when you have those 4 running backs, what do you need a 5th one for, especially like a guy like Anderson?
Yeah, I get it. But, I mean, we talk about, when you pound a position early, it's important not to completely ignore it.
Right, but running backs, you only generally get 2 to 3 that are.
You can start 4 in the FFPC.
But
I don't know if you knew this, Dave. But
yeah, but Anderson is not like this guy who's going to be like a top 24 back. He's just nothing.
I'm hesitant to write him off as he won't be a top. I mean, Jonathan Stewart had like 220 some carries last year. C.J. Anderson is much younger. They went out and signed him. You know what I mean?
First of all, he's not all that much younger, and he's also like an average, like non-pedigree, fairly pedestrian. Again, that 3.8, 4.0 yards per carry. Kind of average back. He gets hurt a lot, oversized, and he's not a superstar. McCaffrey's a superstar type back. He's the guy that's going to be in there just like taking up space when McCaffrey's not out there.
Okay.
In my opinion. It's my opinion. I mean, who knows how they're going to use him.
I don't think it's crazy to say that he doesn't finish in the top 24. I'm just not ready to write him off like, oh, there's no chance of that. Like, I think he's still.
I think there's no chance.
Okay, fair enough.
Jonathan Stewart was number 41 at running back last year, averaging 8 points per game.
But how many touches did he have?
Who gives a shit?
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think C.J. Anderson is going to do more with those vacated touches.
He had 198 rushes and 8 catches.
Yeah, it's 200.
Yeah, to finish at running back 41.
Then there's no way C.J. Anderson finishes that low barring injury. I don't see that happening.
Really?
No. And
I'll bet 5 on that. I'll bet you C.J. Anderson finishes at running back 41 and lower.
Now, hold on.
I get 41, though.
I get points per game then if you're doing that.
Why?
Because
points per game?
I just said barring injury.
All right, so hang on. So it's 40. So he can't get hurt?
Well, okay, let's say he gets hurt, but then I get points per game.
All right, whatever. Sure.
Okay.
But that's worse for you because then some guy, 41 at points per game, because you have some guy who have 3 games and they average like 20 points a game. Like let's say Cohen gets an ACL.
All right, then let's put in. We can't put in a qualifier.
The game. By the way, the show's over in 7 minutes.
Yeah, I know. We need to. All right, let's flesh this out a little.
We'll
bit
figure
more.
on Friday. We'll make this.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. So that was Jason Rockfeld's team. We both like it by and large for the most part. Eric Danowski, the FFPC, Joe drafting 6th tonight. Running backs Alvin Kamara, Tariq Cohen, Aaron Jones, Deontay Foreman, T.J. Yeldon, Peyton Barber. Receivers Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen, Emmanuel Sanders, Devin Funchess, Marquise Goodwin. Tight ends Greg Olson, Evan Engram. Quarterbacks are Matt Ryan, Alex Smith, and Jameis Winston. Did a good job on quarterback, waiting until 11th round to draft his first one, and I really like the trio he put together. Obviously, he's good at tight end with both Olson and Engram. However, the price he paid, because he drafted both those tight ends early, is his running backs are a little suspect. I mean, we're not big fans of Foreman and what he is going to do this season coming back from that Achilles. I do like Yeldon in the 15th, and then Peyton Barber is kind of like whatever in the 16th. But if he does carve out a spot in that backfield, I mean, there is something to be said for that. I think, pounding the receivers, getting, those top 5 in the first 10 rounds, maybe they're not my favorite receivers in the world, but all of them should see some pretty decent volume. So I look at this team as a pretty competitive one.
Yeah, I think so as well. By taking Olsen, I know we did a nice job there. I think those receivers are all fine, and the three quarterbacks. The 3 quarterbacks are actually great. I think Winston as your third is fantastic. I'd say it's definitely a solid team. I think, like you kind of said, Sanders, Funchess, whatever. But I thought the Goodwin pick was a really nice pick, and he does need Aaron Jones to kind of do something because with Tariq Cohen as your number 2, it gets a little dicey there.
Moving on to Fantasy Alarms, Howard Bender's squad from the 7th spot. Running backs, Saquon Barkley, Alex Collins, Chris Thompson, Corey Clement, Theo Riddick, Chris Carson. Receivers, Devontae Adams, Will Fuller, Sterling Shepard, Tyrell Williams, Danny Amendola, Michael Gallup. Tight ends are Delaney Walker and Kyle Rudolph and Gerald Everett. And quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson and Eli Manning. No problem with the quarterbacks there, Dave. The receivers are deep. However, they're not top heavy, to put it lightly. And then you have Walker, Rudolph, and Everett, which I think are fine at tight end. The running backs are not the running backs I probably would have went with. You have the potential of Theo Riddick catching passes, Chris Carson maybe carving out a bigger role than a lot of people are thinking that he will in Seattle. And then Corey Clement, obviously, you know how like Philadelphia likes to use a lot of different running backs. He could, garner some touches there, but I think there's just too many question marks for me to really get behind this team.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, actually. Walker and Rudolph are okay. Alex Collins, I thought was a big reach in the 3rd round. I didn't like that pick. And Chris Thompson, he's always getting hurt, and he's dicey. He's just a pass-catching back. And then Clement, Riddick, Carson, I couldn't count on those players. And then the rest of his receivers, in my opinion, are not good enough. I mean, that Fuller, as you know, I don't care for him. Shepard could emerge and actually be decent. I think Tyrell Williams is a nice value pick, actually, and Danny Amendola and Gallup aren't bad picks. So we'll see if the back half of his draft can rescue the front half.
Moving on to Team 8. Now, this is a team that you had already said, Dave, that you like. Mike Maloney's team, if I can bring it up here. Just bring it up. Okay. Running back, Sony Michel, Kerryon Johnson, Nick Chubb, Ty Montgomery. Receivers are Amari Cooper, Josh Gordon, Sammy Watkins, Alan Hearns, Mike Williams. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce. Quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford, Phillip Rivers. He also took the Jaguars defense and the Rams defense in back-to-back picks in the 13th and 14th rounds, so he is set at defense.
Which I didn't care for those picks.
Dude, that's compared to where they're going in draft in FFPC best balls.
That's great, but he only has 4 wide receivers through 12 rounds, and then so now you're stuck with crappy-ass Mike Williams in the 15th round. When you should have been pounding more wide receivers in the 13th and 14th. The defenses are fine. They'll help him out a bit, but I think he could have used more wide receiver depth, especially with the question marks around Josh Gordon.
I was just saying there's a lot of question marks. You have Amari Cooper trying to bounce back. Sammy Watkins is in the new offense, and then your top 3 running backs are all rookies too. So I mean, there is a lot of unknown here.
His team is a real hit or miss type team. With Gronk and Kelce, I mean it's easy to ignore how great his tight ends really are because they are fantastic.
Best in the league.
And Michelle, I thought Kerryon Johnson was a nice value, and I thought Chubb was a decent value in this, 7th and 8th round. So I think waiting on running backs like that, he's going to have a super high variance team. So I think his team's going to finish really late, or it's going to be pretty darn good.
Fantasy Gurus, Graham Barfield is next. His running backs, Kareem Hunt, Darius Geis, Deion Lewis, Tevin Coleman. Receivers, Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, Chris Hogan, Randall Cobb, Robert Woods, Tyler Lockett, Deshaun Jackson. Tight ends are Charles Clay and Benjamin Watson. Quarterbacks are Marcus Mariota, and Jared Goff. He also sneaks the Chargers defense in there as well.
He just grabbed Luke Wilson, good pick.
And he got Luke Wilson. So, the fact that he waited until round 10 to grab his tight ends probably wasn't ideal, but he was able to stack some really good running backs and receivers because of that, and I think he did a good job getting those 3 tight ends in in rounds 10 through 17. Fine with the quarterbacks as well. This team maybe isn't sexy because it doesn't have the big names at quarterback or tight end, but I think it's going to be one that people will be tangling with all season.
I do too, actually. I think this is going to be a tough team to contend with Julio Fitz, and then the running backs are actually sneakily good. Hunt, Geis, Deion Lewis is going to be a productive PPR back. Coleman he'll pop off those big runs. And then his receivers, he did this is kind of what I would have advised for the prior team. He takes Tyler Lockett and Deshaun Jackson, guys that I don't really care for in general, but they're going to have some good games. I mean, Lockett I kind of like. But, with pairing that with Julio, Fitz, Hogan, Cobb, and Woods, now you have a really nice set of wide receivers.
Yeah.
And then, Luke Wilson, Clay, Benjamin Watson, again, not sexy, but Watson on the Saints, why not? I think this is a really good team. I like this team a lot.
Ben Watson's best season as a pro was with Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints.
Absolutely. There's, you can look at, he has 3 starting tight ends, and look at where he took them.
Yeah, he obviously took them very, very late.
Very late.
He did a good job acquiring some value there.
Exactly.
Moving on to Joe and Tom Delzanero from the 10 spot. Running backs, Melvin Gordon, Christian McCaffrey, Ronald Jones, Duke Johnson, Matt Breida, Jordan Wilkins. Receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marvin Jones, Cooper Kupp, Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore. Tight ends are Jimmy Graham, Vance McDonald, Hayden Hurst. Quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo and Patrick Mahomes. Dave, this is the Mahomes team. It's going to clearly win the league. Let's move on to Team 11. No, but I will say I like the running backs on this team. I think the tight ends are very good. I have no problem with the quarterbacks, obviously. Question mark to me is all these young receivers and can they be consistent enough for him to be a week in and week out threat? And I think that this team is definitely better than average. I just question how dominant it can be.
Yeah, the receivers are the question marks. It's funny because he took a lot of players that I personally liked. Like, I like Hayden Hurst. I like DJ Moore. I like Cooper Kupp. I actually don't mind Robbie Anderson there. Juju I like. Ronald Jones I like. McCaffrey I like. So I'm super biased towards this team because I like a lot of the players that he took. But your point about the receivers is well made, and I think that could be an issue.
Former overall champ in the Pros versus Joe's competition, Jake Seeley, is drafting 11th tonight. His running backs are LaShawn McCoy, Marshawn Lynch, Jamal Williams, Doug Martin, Kenneth Dixon. His receivers are DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham, T.Y. Hilton, Alshon Jeffrey, Kelvin Benjamin. Tight ends are David Njoku, Jake Butt, and Mark Andrews. Quarterbacks are Andrew Luck and Ben Roethlisberger. Not much to say about the quarterbacks. Again, if Luck's healthy, his quarterback should be very, very good. If he's not, there could be some concern there with the depth. He did not take a tight end until round 8, but he got a pretty good one in David Njoku. I don't know how, what type of season is in store for both Butt and Andrews, so there's some question marks there. We don't know about LaShawn McCoy's legal issues, if they're behind him or if they won't affect him this season. Obviously, McCoy is a steal in the 4th round. The running backs don't go very deep for me, and the receivers are obviously fantastic. It's the backbone of this team, and they should carry Seeley quite deep to be competitive deep into the season.
Yeah, receivers are great. I think the tight ends are going to be a tragic problem for this team. I don't care for them at all. Njoku was fine, but he just did not press them enough. He waited too long, I think, beyond the first one. I think that's going to be his problem. Yeah, even with the great receivers, I think that he's going to struggle with that tight end all year long.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. And then finally tonight, Fat Bastards. It's John Kleinfelter. It's Dave Byer picking from the 12 spot. Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Rex Burkhead, James White, and Darren Sproles at running back. The receivers are Stephon Diggs, Allen Robinson, Jamison Crowder, Devontae Parker, Cameron Meredith, and Dede Westbrook. Tight ends are Jared Cook and Eric Ebron, Aaron Rodgers, and Kirk Cousins at quarterback. The running backs very top-heavy with Cook, Fournette, and Burkhead. Dave, it slacks off a little bit after that with White and Sproles. Both those guys are pass catchers. You'd like to think that they'll be starting a few weeks for the Fat Bastards this year. And then, you have Diggs as everybody's favorite breakout type guy. Well, not breakout because he sort of already broke out, but there's a lot of people talking him up right now. Allen Robinson, obviously coming off the ACL, big things are expected of him. Devontae Parker, maybe this is the year, we don't know. Jamison Crowder, I know you and I both like. The tight ends, Cook and Ebron, for waiting until round 7, you could have done worse. I would have liked to see better. This team is interesting.
I think they needed a third tight end. I don't know why they're taking Ekeler and Sproles and guys like that, which are, Sproles is washed up. Ekeler has a role, but it's fine. They needed a third tight end and maybe even a fourth tight end, and they're taking kickers and running backs. Otherwise, I like the team quite a bit. But, again, ignoring that tight end position, when you have dicey guys who can't catch like Ebron and Jared Cook, he can't catch all that well either, to be honest with you. So, again, that's a problem.
So that is going to wrap up our coverage from the Pros vs. Joes League number 2. This is the Upside Down League tonight here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We wanted a tight end draft, Dave, and we got it tonight. This was a fun little draft that we got to see. I want to thank Ryan Santos for checking in with us. Of course, you can check out his work at dynastyfootballfactory.com and all the great draft boards that he posts on Twitter at FFLinks as well. Thanks to Ryan for calling in. Obviously, big thanks to Darren Armani, the FFPC, our producer and mutual friend Rob, our audio engineer Bryce, and most of all of you listeners that tuned in for this. We really appreciate it. Tomorrow, we will be back. Another special episode. We've reached the halfway point of the Pros vs. Joes competition tomorrow. We'll be on an hour later than we were tonight. This is at 10 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. The Joes, FFPC Joes, Stephen Michaud, Derek Brinkman, Richard Beard, Caleb Alcorn, and Sean Isaacs, Chad Castorina, and Don Azell. They will be leading the FFPC charge. On the pros side tomorrow, we have Dan Sainio from, I hope I'm pronouncing that, Sainio, from Dynasty League Football and RotoViz. Kevin O'Brien, the FF engineer from Dynasty League Football as well. The Quant Edges, Elliot Crisp will be, I think he's making his Pros vs. Joe's debut this year. He'll be on, and of course, 3 familiar faces drafting in the back end. Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys, Rich Rebar from Roto World, Josh Hornsby from Fantasy Insiders, better known as Fantasy ADHD on Twitter. So that will be tomorrow.
He of 300,000 tweets.
Yes, exactly. 10/9 Central tomorrow. We will have that draft for you. So please tune in for that, as it will be fun and frivolity for another 2 hours. Want to remind everybody, if you have not gotten if you want your early draft slot on July 30th, make sure you're paying for your FFPC main event team in full by midnight Pacific tonight. If you're listening to this live, you have basically 4 hours, a little less than 4 hours to take care of that. Check out all the Football Guys Players Championship drafts we have at myffpc.com, as well as best ball drafts starting at 35, Dynasty, and a bunch of other awesome stuff there as well. Thanks so much for listening. Your week continues.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
About to call your ass a Uber, I got somewhere to be. I hear fairy tales about how they gon' run up on me. Well, run up when you see me, then we gon' see. I got enemies, got a lot of enemies, got a lot of people trying to drain me of this energy, trying to take the wave.
I think I'm willing to waive the injury aspect with C.J. Anderson.
All right.
I've just been broadcasting for 2 hours. I'm not in the greatest frame of mind right now to make this call, but I think I'm willing to do that on that one.
All right, so 41.
I'm not making it right now. We will revisit this on Friday.
Just relax.
I'm just saying, like, I don't want you roping me into this. No,
I'm not going to come at you too hard on it.
You've been coming at me pretty hard the last couple of years on these bets. Like, my kids have been eating cold ketchup soup because of that.
Oh yeah, you're down like $8.
It's more than that. Okay, so we'll revisit this on Friday, and hopefully we can get it fleshed out.
Right on.
Talk to you tomorrow, everybody.
You work all day, then go home and make dinner. That's not fair, because making your dinner, that's our job. We don't work all day, then go home and do your job, so stop doing ours. Head into Buffalo Wild Wings for America's favorite wings, shareables, burgers, and more. Choose from 21 signature sauces and seasonings to take your dinner from mild to wild. But don't worry, we're dinner pros. If things get too wild, we've got dozens of beers on tap and a full bar to bail out your palate. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.